Welcome back to Food for Thought. Today we're taking on one of the most controversial, emotionally charged, and divisive topics of our time: the battle between traditional and modern values, and how the rise of hypergamy-loaded feminism has reshaped and in many ways dismantled the very foundations of family and society. For decades, the narrative has been simple: progress equals freedom, equality, empowerment. But what if that progress came at a cost we rarely talk about? What if the pursuit of liberation, when twisted by hypergamy, consumerism, and ideology, has left us with fractured families, declining birth rates, fatherless homes, and a generation uncertain of who they are or where they belong? This isn't about nostalgia for the past or blind resistance to change. It's about looking at what happens when the pendulum swings so far in one direction that balance and even common sense are lost. When modern ideology declares war on biology, tradition, and the natural bonds that hold society together, we should ask, what's left standing? In this episode, we'll trace the line between traditional and modernity. We'll look at how cultural shifts, radicalized narratives, and unchecked hypergamy have corroded family structures. And we'll confront uncomfortable truths that mainstream voices often dismiss or censor outright. Okay, now I'm not alone in this today. I have my friend Tom back. Tom is a sharp thinker, a good friend, and a former guest of the show, and someone who has never shied away from wrestling with hard truths. Together, we're going to peel back the layers on this issue, not from theory or statistics, but also from lived experience, cultural observation, and honest conversation. Tom, my man, welcome back.
Hey, thanks for having me.
All right, how you doing today? Everything all right?
I'm good. I'm good. Yeah, just day at a time. You know what I mean? There's obviously stuff going on in life,
Yeah,
but
right.
yeah, can't complain.
You can't complain, but you can, but you won't. That's good.
Well, yeah,
Yeah,
that's more
kind
like
of,
it,
kind
actually.
of me too. But that's a private thing. Anyway, let me jump into the next section of the podcast here. Okay, if we're going to talk about where we are now, the breakdown of family, the rise of fragmented society, the confusion around gender roles, we have to be honest about the roots. Ideas don't just appear overnight. They're planted, watered, and eventually bear fruit. Some fruit nourishes, but others may poison. And feminism, especially in its modern radicalized form, has produced a harvest that is anything but nourishing. The early claims were wrapped in fairness, education, the vote, workplace equality. But like so many revolutions, it didn't stop there. It metastasized. It stopped being about equal opportunity and became about equal outcomes. Then about superiority, then about dismantling the structures that held society together, which are marriage, fatherhood, commitment, responsibility. And beneath that ideological superstructure lies something even older, even more primal: hypergamy, the biological drive for women to marry up, to seek provision and status. It's not inherently evil, but in a society where traditional boundaries and norms are removed, hypergamy mutates into something destructive. Let me read these quotes to give us a little bit of perspective before we move on. Okay? So, in The Rational Male, Rollo Tomasi said, hypergamy doesn't care. It doesn't care about your love, your patience, your sacrifice, your loyalty. Hypergamy is a woman's optimized sexual strategy, and it has no moral dimension. Friedrich Nietzsche said, convictions are more dangerous enemies of truth than lies. In this case, feminism, when radicalized, became less about truth and more about conviction weaponized. And Camille Paglia, a dissident feminist, admitted feminism has mistakenly denigrated marriage, motherhood, and homemaking. And then, in modern culture, there are certain things that could be used as illustrations of this itself. For example, dating apps have become the digital marketplace of hypergamy. The stats don't lie. Women swipe right on less than 10% of men, while men swipe right on 60% plus of women. Dating apps are hypergamy in algorithmic form. Then you have high profile divorces. Maybe I shouldn't mention any names of these people, but they reveal not just private disagreements, but billion-dollar case studies in female mate switching once status and resources are secured. And then you have celebrity culture, which normalizes hypergamy, and radical feminism simultaneously. Think of pop icons who might mock marriage, celebrate the independent woman, yet date only the wealthiest, most famous, and powerful men. Even sitcoms and Netflix shows present the bumbling dad, the wise mother, disposable marriage trope, cultural reinforcement of feminism's narrative. And let's jump on some talking points now. We're gonna take time to the limits, I think, today with these, and also myself. But let me read the first one here. The first talking point I have for today is this: how did first wave feminism, which focused on suffrage and basic rights, evolve into third and fourth wave feminism, obsessed with power, dismantling, and entitlement? What do you think, Tom?
I mean, like anything in life, things get complex pretty quick. I mean, there's a lot to unpack, about feminism, and I mean, then you want to start talking about, the history of it and how it evolved from, the more basic form of it to what it is today. There's obviously arguments on both sides. You can't say that feminism is all bad or all good, right? It's always, right? It's a spectrum.
Okay.
Some pieces of it are going to be mostly good and useful in societies. Some of them are going to be only, maybe not necessarily good for the society overall, but they may be positive for within a relationship. So there's all these different aspects of it. What do you want to optimize for? Like, I mean, you got to ask the question, like, if you were to do feminism better, what would that look like? And what is the limit of total, I don't know, making it as good as it can be? Like, what would that mean, right? Because there's always going to be trade-offs. Um, so yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with feminism. I have, an ex-wife, a daughter, a girlfriend. Like, I want for all of them to succeed in life and be able to compete with men in the workforce. And I don't know, and I don't want women to be essentially subservient, uh,
Right.
to men. Obviously, women are, as or more intelligent on average as men. What do you do with all that? I mean, yeah, I'll
Right.
shut up there. You know,
Okay. I actually agree with all of that. There's no reason why any woman has to be subservient to a man because he's a man. You go to work, there's your boss is a guy. The woman has to bow and scrape and fetch him coffee all the time. No, I don't think so. I'm actually for women's rights. I'm not for feminism though, because feminism has gone past the mark. If you've ever read the book called "The 48 Laws of Power" by Robert Greene, there's a one of
yeah,
his
a while
chap.
back.
Yeah, right. That's a great book. I need to reread that actually. One of the chapters he has, I believe it's from his book. That's called "Never Go Past Your Mark." When you have a goal that you're going for, know when to stop. And I don't think the feminist movement knows where to stop. They've gotten a taste of power, and people are listening to them. They're gaining momentum, and they've gone past the mark. Okay, it used to be okay. We want our rights and we want equality in the workplace. To all men are evil. They should be wiped off the face of the earth. Some of them are saying this. That's the really radical feminism.
Well, yeah, but that better be a small portion of the feminists.
Well, I
I
think
mean,
it's
'cause
growing.
that's
I
a
don't know.
radical
That
view.
from what I, it's a radical view that I think is growing. And for what reason, we don't know. I mean, it absolutely makes no sense. If a man were to come out and say some of the things that the feminists were saying, they would be literally, hung in public square. They would be
Yeah, so
ostracized and demonized. And you know what I mean? Because it's a woman saying certain things, then it's okay.
yeah, look, so yeah, it isn't fair that, certain attitudes coming from a man versus coming from a woman are going to be looked at differently. And when it comes from a woman, I mean, this goes both ways, but let's say it comes from a woman, it's going to be viewed as, totally okay, and it's accepted within society. But if the man had, similar views towards women, it would be considered, not okay. Uh, and obviously within society, the beliefs and the movements that take place kind of swing right back and forth between the extremes. Like, there's fairly recently there was this book and movement where it was it, it became more popular to think that this what was it, the love, it was a book that this woman wrote. Sorry, I'm stumbling on a title here. Eat, Drink, Love, something like that.
Oh, right. Yeah, I've heard that. Did you read it?
Right, where it was like, yeah, I have an idea of what it's about. I've heard other people talk about it and sort of review it. But here's the lady that's essentially in pursuit of her soulmate,
Okay.
right? And as far as I know, she's been divorced like 5 times, but had, let's say, five, six, seven relationships. But, I the last I heard, she's sort of alone now, or not married, or not in any relationships currently. I mean, one needs to ask themselves, like, what is it really that y- they're shooting for in life when it comes to relationships? Do you want a relationship that's like basically, forever? And if it is that, like, what does it mean for you? What are you trying to, what does it give you, and what does it give your partner? Or are you gonna accept that, hey, evolutionarily, we meant to pump out kids, and like after 7 to 10 years, when the kid essentially can run and feed themselves and find food, and then it's okay to just step back and it's it. Just, be more like an animal. Okay, you know, produced a kid, did my job. It's the kid lived. All right, I can move on and kind of forget about, that partner and that kid. E- Yeah, I mean, good luck trying to
That's one of
work
the
all these
problems. Yeah,
things.
all of that, no problem with that, but that's part of the attitude of modern society, not the traditional family. All of this, you have the kid after 3 years or whatever, you leave each other and look for better.
Yeah, but I think the problem is that from day to day, you're going to feel different. You're going to see things in a different light. You're going to be like, all right, I like this thing yesterday. I'm not crazy about it today because I already, it's something I know already. It's not as exciting. Um,
Okay,
right? We change as people throughout lives. Like,
right,
you yesterday and me yesterday are not the same people as we are today.
true,
And tomorrow is going to be yet another flip of what we know, what we understand. Going to be a little
right, right.
wiser, hopefully, but
Okay, okay. Let me stop you there because we're mentioning, like you're mentioning a lot of stuff that I want to address a little bit before we move on. First of all, this idea of the soulmate is ladies looking for a soulmate. She writes a book. Soulmate, the idea of a soulmate is an idea that comes from ancient Greek philosophers trying to describe the state of affairs of men and women. Okay, philosophically trying to explain the situation of why men and women get together. It's complete. Basically, in my opinion, it's garbage. The idea of the one, the soulmate, and stuff like that is very infantile. Okay, I think you want to be in a relationship with someone for X amount of reasons, and to make it work, You have to make a decision. You have to make a choice. You have to wake up every morning and you have to rededicate yourself to making that relationship work. Because even in the case of it is this soulmate thing, even if it were true, people change over time, and the day to day can get ugly. So you have to choose to do it every day. Make the relationship work. That is
No, I agree, right? But it's also obvious that people do fall in love, right? And this soulmate business starts with basically with you falling in love with someone, and hopefully, it's reciprocated. Then for a couple of years, while your brain runs this program of, hey, I'm being in love with this person, which is again also evolutionarily driven, obviously, to keep to keep the couple together in order to procreate.
right.
The feeling of love you feel, and when you're in it, it's like, you have no doubt that you like all about the other person, and that's great, right? But unfortunately that wears off after a couple of years, and at that point, what do you value? What do people choose to value, right? Because at that point it becomes more of a logical thing, like you're saying. You sort of have to decide. It's this uh mature love, right? There's that.
Right. All of
This
that
was
becomes
introduced in like Love Less
yeah.
Traveled.
Right. All of
Um,
that is going to become much easier to discuss when we actually get down to the part about the traditional families, the traditional Christian families, where they have an extra help that other people don't have. Because if you're basically living up through the via the concept of the soulmate, this is your soulmate, everything's gonna go well no matter what. You're deluding yourself with a fairy tale. It's basically what it is. This whole thing about the soulmate and the one person for you in all of the world is complete
yeah, the problem
garbage,
is in the
and
moments.
it ruins people. It makes people spend their whole lives running around looking for something that they're never gonna find.
Yeah, but like as a society, we've been doing this shit for forever, right? Like it's the same story. Like every young man, every young woman, at the age of 15, 16, 17, 18, if they happen to fall in love, like goes through the same thing. It's like, there's
Yes,
no
and
getting
there's
around it.
right, and that's part of the problem. You feed people fairy tales as truth, and you're gonna get bad results.
Yeah, yeah, which, seems to
Okay,
be part of the deal. Like, okay,
yeah, no,
good luck getting away from that.
it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be. Let me go to talking point number two. That was interesting. Think that was a good exchange right there. Let me jump on talking point number two. And all of this, where does hypergamy fit in? Once traditional cultural tricks were removed, has hypergamy been unleashed in ways society simply cannot withstand?
What do you mean by cultural checks?
Okay, before let's say this whole marrying up idea. Okay, this kind of makes sense when you're not married. Maybe a woman's searching for the best guy to be a husband and father to her children. And you want some degree of success, you want some degree of intelligence, some degree of beauty. Going around, maybe dating other people to find that best combination is good. Okay. But then you're supposed to get married and settle down and have your children and work on raising them, right? Okay. Now what happens? We don't have that concept of people have to go get married eventually. The concept is just, sleep around as much as you want, look around for the richest person you can find, whether it be male or female. Hypergamy is definitely a female strategy, but in general, it's kind of there, kind of on both sides, really. Marrying up concept. So when you start taking away these traditional checks, because now you have uh, a fall from grace from marriage. Okay, concept of hypergamy is completely unleashed on society. There's no checks and balances anymore. It's just unleashed like a wild animal. Is society going to be able to withstand something like that? I know what I think.
Uh, I mean, survival of in general of the society is probably going to be like that. Yeah, that should be fine. I don't think the society is going to just disappear or die because of it. Because as long as you're pumping out kids, no matter how you do it, the s- what the species continues. Um,
Yeah, but how? What is the
Now,
what is the picture of society that we're seeing? No one is married. I mean, this is where
well,
it's going,
not
right?
no one,
No,
50%, right?
no, I'm talking right now, but I'm saying I'm talking about maybe 50 years down the line. How many marriages are there going to be? How many successful marriages are going to be? How many well-adjusted children they're going to be? What's the fabric
Yeah.
of
So
society going to
look,
look
the
like?
quality, right? The quality and of society. Like I'm not even sure how you're going to define quality, right? Like, but there's going to be some metrics that one could potentially use here and track those and see if they go up and down. Like it's going to give you, they are going to give you some indication of what the state of affairs is within the society. Now, whether those metrics indicate, positive or negative things, that's up for interpretation.
Right. Well, these metrics we already know, Tom. What are the metrics? Children born out of
Like,
wedlock, marriages,
yeah,
divorces, whether it's a, heterosexual marriage, gay marriage. All of these statistics, we're starting to accumulate them. Yeah, it doesn't look good.
yeah, but then well, so you got the statistics, but then you got to decide like is any particular statistic going up or down a good thing or a bad thing, right? Positive or negative in some way. Like it does
Okay, so
it.
how is
The
the divorce rate being so high as it is right now a good thing? Let me throw that question
Well,
at
we
you.
got to make an argument for like why is it better to stay married rather than get divorced after 7 years or whatever. Like let's nail that one down. Like okay, is
To
should
nail it,
marriage be
we would have to
forever?
nail it. We would have to nail it down later because we haven't gotten to the traditional families yet.
Well, but that's sort of the bottom line question is like, all right, like what are you shooting for? And then why argue, A versus B? Like, okay, what is that? I mean, unless you know that, how can you try making arguments for, for what's going on?
Good luck with that, pal.
Yeah, well,
I wouldn't want to be
how
in the
do you really
position of trying to explain why the decline of marriage is a good thing for society. I don't think it's true that it's better for society, personally. I wouldn't want to be in your shoes right now.
like how else do you really solve problems, right? You need to use precise language. You need to be specific about, what it is you're looking at, what it is you're trying to solve. Otherwise, stuff gets mushy and, you can't get focused and you can't really, adjust, some parameter because you don't really know exactly what parameter it is you're trying to adjust. So
Okay, so let's
I don't know.
say let's say for let's let me give you an example. Let me throw something at you. Okay, uh, a lot of feminists say, traditional marriage between a man and a woman is actually oppressive, repressive. It's basically slavehood, institutionalized slavery.
I mean, you can totally,
They say that's a problem.
yeah, so
Do you
slavery in general, right?
do
I think
no?
most
That's
people
not
agree
slavery.
is
People going to going to an altar or taking a vow to be married. That's done of free will, right? It's not
yeah,
slavery.
totally, 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 totally. On the
You know
right,
what
the
you're
day you're
getting.
getting married, nobody's thinking slavery and divorce, right? It's all roses and it's all positive thinking, and it's like, looking
Right?
forward
It's
to a
roses
great
and
future
hearts.
and being
Yeah,
happy and yeah,
exactly.
yeah, yeah,
So
for
they
sure.
think that's a problem. They think that's a problem. Okay, so now they say the solution to that is that no one gets married. I'm never getting married. I'm never having children. Don't you think
Well,
that's an extreme position to take?
sure. But yeah, but in a free society, a woman should have that choice, right? Like you want, hey, you feel like you want to get married, great. You feel like you don't, great. Okay, do whatever the other thing is that you feel like you want to do. Go
Well,
ahead and
then
try it.
It used to be that dating was basically getting to know someone to see if you would want to marry them. Now dating is just something that you do on maybe when you got few free hours and you're trying to get someone in bed and have your kicks before you go back to work on Monday.
Well, so majority of that is going to be men, but there are some women that
No, no,
feel
it's
that way
many
too.
women. No, it's many women. It's many women too. Um, Okay, so where am I going with this? If you think marriage is oppressive and a problem, and your idea is to not get married, then you should not date, be celibate, be alone. You know, go hang out with your friends if you want to, but don't lead anybody on. You know, you can't really have it both ways. I think here, and a
But
lot of people are actually doing it both ways. You know, they're doing. I don't want to get married, but I want to date and mess around as much as I want.
yeah, yeah, but look, it's essentially the dual nature of your brain, right? You have the animal brain that runs the instinct program, right? And then you have your logical brain that's like trying to basically imagine the future, right? The animal brain doesn't do any future planning and imagining. It wants what it wants at the moment, you know, and the primary goals of that part of the brain are, you know, reproduction, survival. Yeah, reproduction and survival essentially, right? But you know,
Right,
but then you try to match that with what your plan, you know, like great plan for the future, what your happy future looks like that your logical brain produced, and you know, those two don't mesh. And you
right. So
and
which
people
part is gonna
essentially
win?
go between the two.
No, no, stop right there. Stop right there. Which part is gonna win? Which
It's
part of the
tough to
brain is
beat.
gonna win?
The logical brain's got no shot, man, because you know, like if I am a bit of a betting man, and you know that the emotional brain, which is again the primal brain that doesn't even understand language, but understands emotions, and that is what drives action most of the time.
Okay, so you're coming into a point where you're saying these people, because this is where your conversation is going. These people claim they make a bunch of claims about what's wrong with society and marriage and all of these things, and then the reptilian brain, the instinctual part of the brain, is taking over, and they're going against it. Correct?
Yeah, those, yeah,
So
the two different
so you're
portions of the
saying
brains are
their
at odds
action,
with each other.
yes, exactly. So you're saying that they're
But
I
yet
think
it's all
it's the
you, right?
reptilian. I guess it's the reptilian brain is taking over, and their actions are not congruent with each other,
Yeah,
with
I
their
mean,
ideologies.
and hence your, you know, eternal struggle between, you know, good and evil, and
Okay, so this is a
being
disequilibrium that is in people.
disciplined and doing what you
Do you
want in
agree
the
with that?
moment. And say it again.
So I'm saying, does this mean some kind of a disequilibrium in people, if that's the correct word?
Uh, well, duality, right? I mean, it's all within the same brain. It's the same brain, but it's just different parts of it that essentially have different goals in mind.
Right. No, I'm saying so.
And
This
you,
is
as a
so
human being,
you're not a whole human being because you're having all of these conflicts within yourself.
not a whole. Well,
This
you
is
are. I mean, I
why
don't
is
know
this?
what do you mean by
Why
whole.
am
Yeah,
I
you
going with this?
are
It's
whole.
important. But no, because your parts of yourself are fighting with each other. Your
Yeah,
reasoning brain is telling you all this stuff is wrong, and then you go out and do it anyway. There's a
yeah.
disequilibrium.
So you in disagreement, but
You're in
I mean, I don't.
disagreement
You
with
said you're
yourself.
not
So
whole, so I don't know what.
yeah, you're not whole. You're not consistent with yourself.
Yes.
So that's what my opinion about these people. They're not really in touch with themselves. They're being eaten alive by these ideologies, and it's not who we are fundamentally as people. Okay, let me jump on the next talking point over here, which goes to the dating apps. Let's say dating apps, are they the perfect storm? A technological accelerant for hypergamy, putting it on steroids.
The perfect storm, a technology. Yeah, sure. I mean, but I mean, that's true for, in today's world, right? Technology has sped up and made everything easier. So this is just one example of that. Uh,
Okay, so you
yeah,
actually
for
agree with
sure.
that statement.
Oh yeah,
Wow,
totally.
I'm
I
surprised.
mean,
No, I'm surprised you actually agree with something.
what,
Okay,
right? I mean, you
that's
got an
good.
app for everything that makes the thing that used to. You can do that thing on your phone now with swiping up and down and
No,
whatever that
no,
that
is it
you
an
had to do
accelerant?
on paper or in
Is it
person before.
is it no, 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 no. Is it an accelerant for hypergamy? Is it taking hypergamy, supercharging it, and putting it out there in the world?
Is it shoot. Yeah, I'm gonna guess yes that it's gonna make hypergamy easier to execute through having these tools, electronic tools, through having a phone in your through the app on your phone, just because you have access to so many more people, right? But again, it's kind of also true for all the other, socially focused apps. Oh,
Well, what hypergamy
it just
is it
lets you
some?
search a
It's
bigger
not a. It's
pool.
not a. It's not an app. Are we on the same page here?
Yeah, yeah, but you're looking at number three, right? Dating apps, and
Yeah.
then
Are they the
do
perfect
they
storm?
accelerate
Are
her?
they put? Are they showcasing or supercharging, let's say, hypergamy by putting it, let's say,
Yeah, I think.
at the forefront of something that's going on already?
Yeah,
I
I
think it.
think they definitely
I
increase
think it is.
hypergamy.
If yeah, I think it is because a little while ago we talked about the statistics. Women are swiping right on about 10% or less of the eligible men on the dating apps, while men are swiping right on over 60%. So men are
Yeah, so
seeing,
there are
you
good
know,
reasons for that, right?
like what? Because the
Yeah, it's just
same argument the women could use, men could use. If you're not a 10 or 11 looking woman, then you don't get swiped. No, it's not true. Because the 10s and 11s are going to be maybe 5%. Okay, 11 is okay, maybe not 11. The 9s and the 10s, if you do a scale of 1 to 10, which is, I don't particularly like that stuff. I'm just trying to get my point across. If a woman is like a 9 or a 10 on that scale, and that's like 5% of the population, okay? But the spread of the swipes to the right by the men are over 60%. So they're not going only by looks. Whereas
well, look,
women have
these
a very
swipes.
strict set of criteria that they're swiping right on, and men are not.
Yeah, well, that also has basis in the primal brain, right? Essentially, like,
Absolutely,
and
but
and and
but also
there's definitely
ideology.
good theories. My guess is that it's primarily the primal brain that drives those percentages, for women and men swiping left and right.
Right,
And
but
then again, like,
it's not only
it's
that; it's also the ideology. If you go on these social media, there'll be many people, many women in this case. What I'm talking about, it'll be like 6 foot, 6 figure, 6 pack, got his stuff together, and if it's not something like that, don't even bother me. You know what I mean?
well,
It's
and
like on the scale of 1 to 10, it's like a 2 or a 3, looking for a guy who's like a 12.
okay, well,
It's like there's no basis for reality. You know what I mean?
Hey, any one person needs to start somewhere, and you might as well shoot high first, and then, let's see what happens. And then,
Shoot
a
for the
little
moon, and
while
if you
later, you may
miss, you
realize that, oh my
yeah,
God, it's been 6 months and nobody responded. Like, okay, maybe I need to like readjust
yeah,
my expectations here, right? You drop it
yeah.
down to
Shoot.
a 3 pack, cut everything in half and see what happens if you get any hits, right? And then you can,
Maybe, yeah,
and two
maybe.
years later, you do a single pack. I mean, look, so right? Reality hits sooner or later, and you
I
can
hope so.
stay in the dream, right? And look, and obviously, some small percentage of the population on both sides, men and women, are going to be like, all right, uh, I'm young enough, pretty enough, hot enough to score with the opposite sex that are also, towards the top of the charts. Cool. But then, on average, everybody else is going to sort of trickle down and find their level of, I don't know, appropriate mate, further down the scale, further down the line. The difference between, 50 years ago and now is that you see so many other options, right? And and unfortunately, you see how, you get to see the most successful that are out there that 50 years ago, you would have never actually gotten to see. So you see what's possible at the Olympic level, and then you want to try to hit the same shit yourself, but you're nowhere near an Olympian. So
Okay.
I don't know. You got to get somebody local, right? Unless uh, which obviously is a smaller pool, and
It
everything
sounds like
follows from
it
that.
sounds like you're running out of ideas right there. So let's move on to the next point. Okay. The next point says this. It reads thusly. Okay, we're talking about celebrity and high profile divorces. Okay, do they prove the point that no man, however rich or powerful, exempt from hypergamy's wrath? Okay, if you would allow me to answer first, do they prove this point? Yes, they do.
No man, however rich or powerful.
Wrath.
Well, look, like, you know, no hierarchy is infinite. Like once you've married Jeff Bezos, there's only like three guys on the entire goddamn planet that come anywhere near. Sure, I mean, yeah, look, so no, I was saying that no hierarchy, no social hierarchy is infinitely large, right? Eventually, you get close enough to the top, you're going to have fewer options. Once you've been married to Jeff Bezos, where else you're going to go? And if he doesn't float your boat, like at that point, do you get along? The only thing that matters that's left is as human beings, do you like each other? Are you compatible? Like, okay, money's great, but you have so much of it that like it doesn't matter anymore. Like, who gives a shit if you have 50 million or 5 billion? Like you can, you know, with half of either, you can buy pretty much every goddamn thing you possibly want, set yourself up. So, okay, does it make sense to shoot higher? Or like again, like you may have that drive because I don't know, your primal brain says, I'm here, but I still need to go higher. I mean, okay. It's no longer logical, but some will try, I suppose.
Okay, can you? Is it possible? I'm sorry to ask. Almost sorry to ask this question, but can you give me a yes or no if they prove the point? Did you say yes or no?
Yeah, so I don't know if it not necessarily proves hypergamy or the fact that after a few years, you realize that no matter who you with, life can be difficult, right? And like you may your characters or the ways you like to live don't necessarily mesh enough. So no, I would go with a no on this one. There's probably,
Okay,
a portion of that hypergamy is probably part of the entire
Mhm.
equation, but yeah, I don't think it's not necessarily the main part.
Okay, fine. I'm gonna stick with my one-word answer. Does it prove the point? My answer is yes. Let's jump on to the
But
next talking point, okay? Now, feminism claims to liberate women, but is it actually enslaving them to biology in a more destructive form? In other words, is endless dating markets, carousel of dissatisfaction, and an inability to pair bond actually liberation?
I mean, what's the main goal of this? Is it, again, like, what's the primary reason for dating? Is it just having a partner and having, enjoyable home life and sex life, or are we talking about, maybe, or having a
I think you're
family and
getting away. I
kids
think you're getting away from the question. Okay, feminism claims to liberate women. Liberated from
on
what?
some level? Yeah,
Does the alternative that it provides actually liberating them or enslaving them in a different way?
yeah, probably both,
And
right?
was the first way actually an enslavement?
Well, you can certainly make that argument for sure. As soon as you take away the other person's choices in a relationship, and
How do
and
you
like, if they're there out of necessity rather than out of, free will and wanting to be there, then yeah, it's a form of enslavement.
really?
Well, shit. I
Um,
mean, good luck feeling different if somebody, if you go into any one situation where you're like, I have to do this. I don't really want to, but like, for whatever reason, like, uh, you're not going to be as optimistic or positive or enthusiastic about doing the thing, you know, as if you were, if it was your own idea to get in there and make something happen, right? Or be part of something, part of a team, part of whatever. Um, if you're a woman and your father says, you got to marry, such and such because,
no, we're not talking about
it's good for the family. Like,
that. We're talking about something else. I think you kind of lost the step right there. Let's say, for example, we'll break it down in a different way. Would you agree that feminism claims to actually liberate women from things like institutions like marriage and child rearing and giving birth and doing other stuff? It gives them claims to actually liberate them from the slavehood that they have traditionally been a part of. Do you
yeah,
agree to that?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, it gives you more options,
Okay,
right?
okay, stop right
Being
there.
married.
Hold on a second. Hold on a second. Hold on a second. What are the alternatives that feminism provides that actually is liberating? Is it endless dating markets? Phone apps and hitting the bars every weekend endlessly, just
Well,
looking
nobody,
to hook up or whatever. Is that actually liberating? My answer is no.
well, nobody tell. Well, isn't the final answer? Doesn't the final answer rest with the individual? Like, okay, you can use the phone app, sure. You can go out and try to find dates and have many partners, sure. I mean, sooner or later, you're going to learn what the consequences and, you know, of those actions.
Well, then they're faced with
But
the when they're faced with the fact that when they're faced with the fact where they're going to be leaning heavily upon the ideology that feminism is giving them, as opposed to looking at the facts from their own experience of the ramifications of the feminist ideology.
I mean, shit, look, so what's the best, what is the best thing you can do in life? I mean, shit, you can try to learn and grow and understand, right? And make right decisions for yourself in life, but listen to your, family and close friends that maybe have been through some things before and try to learn from that before making, potentially disastrous decision yourself. Okay. But at some point you got to decide, do I want a relationship that's long term? Do I want a family and be with a man that's gonna for 20 years at least, right? Because that's sort of the time investment for kids. Um, like shit,
Well,
do I value that?
well,
Or do I value,
hmm
because it doesn't take away the ability for you to have a kid on your own or a kid with a non-married partner
okay,
that you may be like, all right, shit, kids 10, like I don't fine if they go away. Like I'll deal with that. Like you can make that decision. Is that bad? I mean, again, options, but
okay.
maybe different options are good for different reasons for different people.
I think it comes down to on this talking point right here. Uh, Feminism is substituting slavery with something that which was never slavery to begin with. I think, a traditional, fully functioning, good marriage has no slavery in it at all. It's just a bunch of ideology rammed down people's throats, which has nothing to do with reality. Now, are some marriages actually a kind of slavery where people, men or women, cannot freely express themselves and do things without having lashback? Yes,
Yeah,
and
for sure.
that's. I'm not talking about. I'm talking about you know what a marriage is supposed to be in this particular moment, as opposed to what feminist ideology claims, because they're both ideals. They want to substitute something that's good, which they say it's a slavery and it's oppressive and repressive and it's a bad thing, and they give you alternatives that mess you up much more. That's what I'm saying. We don't agree on this, I can tell, but that's okay.
Well, I think and like with everything, again, it's a spectrum. Like not all marriages are bad, right? And not all marriages are toxic, right? And maybe despite thinking that, let's say, an arranged marriage for you is something you don't like today, 10 years down the road, you may be like, oh, that is actually the best decision that it was made for me, and I don't, and I've come to enjoy and appreciate it, right? There's those people too. I mean, look, you're trying to dictate, one answer for everyone. Let's say your answer is to like, yeah, the only thing to do the only way to go is to get married and have kids and, shut up and get with it.
It's not the only
I don't
thing.
know.
I'm not saying it's the only thing. Okay, but if you're looking at the alternatives to marriage, what's the alternative to marriage? Being a being a bachelor, chasing after women until you're 50 or
Why,
60.
why not? I don't know. Forced renewed, like voluntarily renewed marriage that ends after 10 years. Like, let's say you put in, I think there's actually some countries that are playing with this or testing this out. But the marriage agreement, right? The standard is that you get married for 10 years. Like at the end of 10 years, the marriage is dissolved, whether you like it or not. And then it is on you to choose whether you want to continue being married or not. And then you got to go fill out paperwork and say, okay, we want to do another 5 or 10 years. Then you sign your next thing and you do a renewal. If you choose to, otherwise, you're done. Like no divorce, no nothing. You basically auto divorced.
Okay,
If you had kids in that time, what do you do with that? I mean, if
I
you want
think
to,
it makes the whole dissolvable marriage thing. It facilitates, let's say, it facilitates a dissolvable marriage, makes it easier for marriages to fail. I don't agree with that. I think, if you really don't want to be married, you have to go out and get a divorce. Just the way if when you wanted to be married, you actually had to go out and get it, perform the ceremony. If you want a divorce, you have to go out and get it. I think that's just kind of ridiculous, personally.
well, I mean, look, that's it's one person's opinion, right? I mean, yeah, I'm sure some people can get behind the idea why that is like the best thing ever, and make their
Yeah, because
arguments for it.
of course, they don't want They don't want responsibility. They don't want to be stuck with the same person. Why are you getting married? If you already know that you don't want to be stuck with the same person for the rest of your life, why
But
are
you
you getting
don't, right?
married? Why are you
I
getting
mean,
married?
some people.
Go off and stop bothering people.
I mean, shit. What if it's two people, a guy and a woman, that have the same attitude? Like, yeah, you know what? Yeah, let's give it 10 years, and then yeah, I might feel different. Like, you know, time passes, I'll feel different. Fuck it, I want to be free. Let me.
Yeah,
uh,
it facilitates the disposable marriage. It's not
Yeah.
something that I can agree with. It makes everything
Well,
much
I mean,
easier than it has to be. You
that's why
know,
free speech is a good thing, because you can talk about stuff and
yeah,
not agree and
that's
just
actually what I'm
discuss.
doing. That's right. That's exactly what we're doing. Actually, I'm just saying. Anyway, okay. Let me jump on talking point number 6. Okay, why do you think a discussion like this is normally taboo? Why can a man not even say, or anyone for that matter, even say hypergamy in polite company without being branded misogynistic?
Haven't
Do
had
you
these conversations, or like it. I can't relate to that one necessarily.
okay?
I don't
Well,
roll
I
around in
think
circles that where
right,
this comes up.
no problem. What I can say is, I think I think hypergamy being brought to light looks bad on women. In what sense? It's putting a name on something we already know exists. Usually, to understand something and to put a name on it is to put some kind of a degree of control on it. Now that people are aware of it, people are starting to talk about it more and know how to deal with it. It actually makes women look bad. Okay?
No, I agree. But there's more things like that, right? That scientifically, if you really look at things objectively, there is many human behaviors and that are proven that that people do, and it's well understood scientifically how people operate. But in polite company, you would never, admit to those things, or you will talk about those things, about hey, other people doing that or people in general doing that, but it's like it's never you and me. Yeah, oh no, I'm right.
Right.
It's like
Unless you want to basically start a fight and then call people out on it, then that becomes a different becomes impolite company. Probably it comes in impolite
and
party.
it's and I don't know how it came about that talking about certain things has become not okay or taboo. But it's like any taboo topic, and especially if it has to do with how humans actually operate, should be. I mean,
It
with
should be
it.
fair game. It should be able to talk about
Yeah,
whatever,
totally, totally,
right?
totally.
Yeah, of
Like,
course. So people should have freedom of speech. Obviously, that's I agree with that.
yeah, but also it shouldn't be okay to try to, b- for anyone to come back and try to bite your head off for essentially describing the reality of how life and the world is, right? Like, what the
Well,
hell is that about?
you sound a little bit naive there, pal. You've been around the block a few times. I know this. So that's how people operate. If they don't have a counter argument that is coherent and intelligent, then then they try to bite your head off. That's how it works.
Well, yeah, when I mean, I think the general answer to that it should be go read a fucking book, but yeah.
Right, that was good. Okay, what does the collapse of marriage rates and the rise of cohabitation, so-called situationships, say about the success or failure of feminism's promises?
And feminism promises what the
The promises of feminism, the complete liberation, complete freedom, liberation of women from
yeah.
of the patriarchy. What is it saying?
Well,
Is it due to the success or failure of feminism's promises?
the success of feminism. Again,
Well,
people,
yeah,
women, especially women,
yeah,
exercise
it's the
other options.
right. It's the fulfillment of the promises of feminism. But since I believe extreme feminists, like these radicalized extreme feminists, is actually detrimental and harmful, it's actually a failure. The fulfillment of a promise doesn't mean that it's a good thing that's happening to you.
Yeah, that squarely relies on like what that promise was and whether you like the idea of, what's being promised, right?
Right. Okay. We're kind of finally getting to the end of this segment. Let's start wrapping up this segment here. So, Tom, here's where I want to dig in with you. Do you see feminism as something that corrupted hypergamy, or do you see hypergamy as the inevitable underlying force that made feminism metastasize? In other words, was feminism the match or the gasoline?
I think her hypergamy was there all along. Feminism just gives it more freedom, I think,
Yeah,
to be expressed.
absolutely. I don't think feminism was the match. It was the match or the spark or the gasoline per se. I think more feminism was the ideological foundation that actually kind of unleashed hypergamy upon an
Yeah,
unsuspecting society in such a way that we're only now, maybe after 30, 40 years, starting to recognize it and deal with it for what it is.
I mean, it certainly made it more okay, probably.
Made what more okay?
Well, the feminism opens up the possibility and like gives you the freedom to exercise
Yeah,
hypergamy or
absolutely.
to
Yes. It validates it, in other words. Yes, absolutely.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. Moving on to the next section. Okay. Up to this point, we've looked at the broad strokes, traditional roles, modern freedoms, and how society shifted. But to really understand what's happening between men and women, we have to go beneath ideology. We have to look at biology. For thousands of years, men and women have faced very different reproductive realities. And those realities shaped our strategies for dating, mating, marriage, and family. Ignore this, and nothing about today's chaos makes sense. When we talk about the asymmetry of reproduction, from the male perspective, men can father numerous offspring with minimal investment. On the female perspective, women invest significantly in each child from pregnancy to nurture. And the implication is that this disparity has led to differing reproductive strategies. Men seek quantity while women seek quality. I think everybody realizes this, knows this to be a fact. Uh, okay, so we talked about the asymmetry of reproduction. Let's jump for a second and talk about the female strategy, selectivity, and hypergamy. Selective mate choice. Women evolved to be discerning, seeking partners who offer protection, resources, and genetic advantages. Hypergamy, which is the tendency to marry up in terms of status and resources, is an adaptive strategy to ensure offspring survival. It's actually a good thing. As many good things, it can be turned into something bad if left unchecked. However, let me not dwell on that, but move forward. Modern manifestation. This manifests in women's attraction to high status individuals and the preference for partners who demonstrate ambition and capability. Let's look at the male strategy for a moment. Quantity and opportunity. Reproductive imperative. Men aim to maximize reproductive success by seeking multiple partners. There's nothing new there, folks. Traits like risk taking and status seeking can be viewed as strategies to attract mates. Kind of, you could say it in a different way. Risk taking is kind of like the bad boy kind of personality, kind of coming into play here. I guess we'll talk about that later too. And then the modern parallels, these behaviors are evident in contemporary dating dynamics where men often compete for attention and status. It's basically like being like a bunch of apes beating their chests to attract attention and scare off other potential apes. That's basically what it is in in a human context. Okay, moving on, we can look at short-term versus long-term strategies. Balancing act. Both sexes navigate between short-term desires and long-term commitments. Conflict. Discrepancies in these strategies can lead to misunderstandings and relationship challenges. And under cultural influence, we could say societal norms and expectations can either reinforce or challenge these innate strategies.
Yeah, all true.
Oh, thanks. Appreciate that. We finally agree on something today. Now, infidelity, a modern reflection on ancient strategies. Statistical overview. Approximately 27, excuse me, approximately 20% of married men and 13% of married women report having had sex with someone other than their spouse. Notably, infidelity rates among women have increased by 40% in recent years. Among those aged 18 to 29, women are slightly more likely than men to cheat, which is 11% versus 10% for men. However, this trend reverses in older age groups. And I think there's actually a reason for that. We'll probably touch on it later. Now, in their 60s, women report the highest rate of infidelity, which is 16%, while men in the same age group report 24%. These statistics suggest narrowing of the gender gap in infidelity over time. And if you want to go check out statistics for such, go check out the Institute for Family Studies. Now, on an evolutionary perspective, women's infidelity may be driven by the desire to obtain good genes from affair partners while retaining parental investment of their primary partners. This dual mating strategy allows women to secure good genetic benefits, risk taking, strength, good looks, or whatever, while ensuring stable caregiving for their offspring. This came from an article, I think it was an article in SciPost. I think it was an article. I have the source listed as SciPost. I think there's an article out there somewhere, but you can look it up for yourself. Cultural controls. Historical restraints on biological impulses. Let's talk about this for a moment. On traditional institutions like marriage, religion, and societal norms have historically acted as checks on innate reproductive strategies of both men and women. Modern challenges such as the erosion of these institutions has led to a resurgence of natural impulses, sometimes resulting in societal instability. The implication of which, understanding these dynamics is crucial for addressing contemporary relationship challenges. Discussion prompts. We're going to get to this in a second after I have a sip of water over here. Excuse me for. Sorry about that. My throat is so dry. It's unbelievable. Thank God for ice water. Okay, anyway, on biological realities. Does the asymmetry of reproduction, 9 months of risk for women versus mere minutes for men, explain almost everything about human mating behavior? What do you think, Tom?
Yeah, it's more than 9 months for a woman for sure. I would say. Yeah, I mean look, I don't think anybody who is at all, you know, informed about looks at this phenomenon in a scientific way is going to argue that, yeah, it's totally true. That men essentially invest very little or can invest very little versus women when it comes to, risk being vulnerable while pregnant, right? Being
That's
exposed
right.
to needing essentially assistance from the group in order to go through pregnancy and then come out the other end. And then on top of that, raise the kid that can actually then survive on their own in the world.
It's basically a no-brainer,
Shit,
right?
I mean, yeah, because of the big head and the big brain, right, in humans, like, the baby is essentially helpless, like at least the first 3 years. Yeah, it's absolutely needs and depends on definitely the mother, but the parents, like the father definitely helps because while the mother is caring for the baby, right, somebody's got to go and hunt and be out in the world to provide food and
Right.
calories.
Yes, of course. We all know from basic biology there is this asymmetry of reproduction, where women has to carry the baby inside of her for about 9 months, um, and then she's very connected to the baby for the child rearing. But also, men too, they have to make an investment as well. I mean, let's not deny that if you're a good father, there are many out there inexorably linked to their own children for the rest of their lives as well. But
Yeah,
women's
there's
risk,
certainly,
right?
it's
Women's risk is greater during childbirth. Also, there's a great deal of difficulty in that they have to face, right? So, I mean, there's not denying it. I believe all of this is true. Okay,
yeah, I mean, it's right. The amount of risk for the man versus woman is, hugely different. Like you can't really compare, right?
right? You can't really compare. I mean, they're kind of complementary in a certain sense. Maybe a long time ago, men going out hunting, right, greater risk. But the whole thing about the asymmetry of reproduction is like it's basically night and day. Okay, let me ask you: are modern conversations about equality doomed to fail if they ignore biology?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, look, I don't think you can really arrive at real answers and real solutions unless you include all the realities of what's going on and embrace that, hey, we are, part animal, right? I mean, there are layers to humans, being an animal is just the bottom layer, but then there's the entire society and family structure and all that. Like, I mean, it all has to be included.
Right. I actually agree with that for a change. Moving on, is hypergamy a superficial preference or an ancient survival instinct that we just renamed?
Well, yeah, it's totally just, your primal brain doing its thing. It's like falling in love. Like it's not a thing you have any control over, really.
Yeah, I actually agree with that too. It is an ancient survival instinct,
So,
something meant for the betterment and the survival of the race. I think there's a part of its superficiality in in let's say a modern society, but overall there's something ancient and primal about it. Why is it that many women pursue relationships or hookups with men they openly acknowledge lack the very qualities they claim they want, while often dismissing the so-called nice guys who do embody those traits? This is a doozy. This question is quite a doozy right there, Tom. If you can unpack that in a way that doesn't get you shot, good for you.
it's not a new question either, right? I mean, it's the primary instinct the woman recognizes in a bad boy, the qualities of being more aggressive and ttherefore more dominant over other men. And
Exactly.
that is and that's the thing that generates the feeling of being attracted to that person, to that guy.
Right.
So yeah, it's the level of aggression, like maybe level of testosterone, level of self-confidence that evolutionarily told the woman that, hey, here's a guy that can stand up to other men and therefore protect her. So
Exactly. Okay, they embody these, let's say these qualities of being big, strong, aggressive, good at hunting, just dominant all around,
yeah,
and
the nice guy, right?
trying
If he's
to
sitting
ensure.
next,
Go ahead.
The nice guy who's your date, right? When the bad boy walks in, right? If the nice guy then gets up, walks over to the bad boy and like basically butts him in the face, right? Takes him out, and comes back to sit and finish dinner, that would kind of make him no longer a nice guy, but definitely dominant.
Right. And I think sometimes too, yes, that would make him dominant. I think sometimes too, women treat like nice guys who are respectful as, let's say, nice guys who are harmless. Because there are plenty of guys who know how to respect women, but if you put them in a situation, they tear your freaking head off, right?
Yeah, I mean,
So they
on the
misjudge that to a certain point.
well, but from time to so at some point in time, before dating or while dating, it's helpful for the guy to find themselves in a situation where they can demonstrate that, hey, I protect my woman, like I'm the provider and the protector here. Anybody tries to sort of get in the way, they get fucked. So you may or may not find yourself in that situation, but if you do and you are there, you do show that you don't back down, then she's probably going to like you more for that. I mean, I'm certain that she will, right?
Absolutely. Do dating apps and modern media amplify hypergamy to unnatural extremes? My response, my personal response is yes.
Yeah, I think we covered that a little bit earlier.
Yes, yes.
Unnatural extremes.
We kind of covered it, but not with this particular wording. Unnatural extremes, yes. Puts it into overdrive to where
Yeah, I
it's
mean, it pushes it to an
uncontrollable.
extreme.
Yes,
I, I mean, are we at an extreme? Like, I don't even know, what the full scale looks like to be able to correctly place it anywhere on the scale. But yeah, apps do amplify, I think, again, the opportunities for hypergamy.
is men's
Yep.
ambition for status, wealth, or fame ultimately just about reproductive advantage?
Yep. Whether you know it or not,
That's
that's
right.
the right. That's the program
Yeah,
that's running in the background that your brain's executing.
that's right. I believe so. Do men pursue risky behavior from extreme sports to dangerous jobs because they're wired to compete for women's attention?
Yeah, same deal. Like, I'd say, yeah, same explanation as the previous one.
Yeah, to a certain extent it is. But this extreme dangerous thing in men, from extreme sports, dangerous jobs, or whatever, to being just a moron to show off, it stems from that. Next one, and it's kind of probably a sensitive thing for some men. How much of male identity collapses when he feels reproductively irrelevant?
Yeah, I mean, there was something to that for sure.
Right,
How
yeah,
much, like what percentage wise, I don't know, but it's definitely a very real noticeable thing. If you have a stable partner, you've been married and you're happily married and you've raised children with your partner, and you still manage to you're still finding a way to mesh in life, right? And have not you're not hating each other, like, then great. Then I mean you kind of shit fat and happy, I guess. But if you're not that and you may be, I don't know, looking to get divorced, unhappy in your marriage, miserable otherwise, then this certainly is a question on your mind. Like, all right, I'm this old now. Like, what am I doing with myself for the rest, for the next 20, 30 years? Like, I certainly feel like I'm in a little bit of a bad spot, right? And I'm like, I'm 54 now. My kids are essentially, 20 and 18, more or less out of the house, right? Daughter's gone,
right.
son's working. Um, okay, like, what am I gonna look to start a new family? I mean, it's
Yeah,
not
exactly.
impossible, but like,
Right.
is to go? I don't know, probably not.
Okay. I think part of this identity collapse is might be the basis of the midlife crisis for men. Men kind of freak out at a certain age. I guess it's kind of different. The age is a little bit different for everybody. Each person has their own age where they kind of freak out, and this might be at the heart of that. Number one. Number two, this identity collapse of by feeling reproductively irrelevant is happening more and more to younger and younger men. You might be a really great guy, but you're not making the 7, 6, 8 figure salary, and women don't even look at you. And that and it's
Right.
and more. Okay, on short-term versus long-term strategies, do modern dating cultures push both sexes toward short-term strategies, men toward casual sex, women toward serial monogamy, or high status flings?
Well, pushing men towards casual sex, that's not, I don't think that's been always up there and it's going to be up there. Um, but women towards serial monogamy or high status flings, well, those are kind of opposed, right? Or opposing serial monogamy. Serial monogamy. So okay, I see. One monogamous relationship after another. High status flings. Well, yeah, I don't know about that one. I mean, I think it depends on the culturally, like how the woman was brought up and on her own beliefs and values, whether that certainly plays into it. She might feel that
Hmm.
she might, she might be attracted to, to men, and along the way, but whether she chooses to actually go for it and try to, hook up time after time.
Yes.
Again, I think it's going to depend on her more logically thought out
Okay.
reasons and again values, right, that she carries.
Right. But in a modern context, dating cultures, I believe they do push both sexes towards short-term strategies. It's
More
been,
options,
I
right?
think that,
Again,
I think that's kind of like the general feel for modern dating and relationships.
I think it opens up, the possibilities for women, the feminism, right? Like, okay, you can now feel like you're more free to do what you feel like doing. And I think men also see that and can treat women more as, equals in that respect and be like, all right, if she chooses to go out and sleep around, and like, okay, then I got no problem doing it with her, So yeah, in general, I think, both ends on both counts, things are ticking up statistically.
Absolutely. I think so. Also, how does the female conflict between wanting stability and desiring excitement play out in today's relationships?
It's the question for a woman. It's like, if and when do I want to start a family? And there's
Yes.
definitely a good portion of women that do in fact want kids and family. And do you give yourself time before you jump into that to I don't know, have your party phase?
Right. Yeah, that's
Maybe.
basically it. That's right. Because
Yeah,
society tells
I'm
you
out of that.
basically go out and grab your gusto while you can. And then women turn around suddenly after the party phase, and it's just like, time to settle down. It's kind of like they're looking for some kind of a balance between the two. Okay. This question,
I
the
mean,
next one over here. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
yeah, I mean, these phases should be, one should follow the other, right? Like you can't, I don't know about a balance there. Like if you go through the party phase, that's got to pretty much stop altogether if you choose to have a family. I mean, otherwise, I don't know why one would think that you think you can continue the party phase while having a family phase and those working out, y-
Yeah, well,
beneficially.
that's a problem. Yeah, actually, that's
Yeah,
a
right.
kind of a
I don't think you can
problem.
mix those two really.
No, you really can't. So in the modern context, I'd say, yeah, it's kind of trying to balance that. Are men truly capable of suppressing the desire for multiple partners, or is culture the only thing that ever kept them in check?
What culture and and I guess values come from culture. But yeah, like, as until the day, your testicles stop working and your brain stops noticing, which it does automatically, essentially, things that it's attracted to. I mean, your brain scans the environment all the time for things that, are potential, dangers and benefits. So good luck turning that off. Like that's not going to happen. So, the
Right,
next best thing you have is trying to override, that with your logical brain and your beliefs, I guess, right, too. Basically saying that, like, no, I'm happy with the woman I have. Like, I value her. I'm good. I'm gonna try to conduct myself and in such a way that I don't expose myself to these problematic behaviors. And you can also arrange your environment in such a way that becomes easier for you, right? So that you're not you don't need to deal with it with, yeah, you don't find 10 women around you, 3 times a day. Um,
okay.
Yeah, it's going to take some doing on an immense part to basically hide himself from this problematic environment, you know,
Yeah.
woman
I
rich or target rich environment.
right. I think there's two aspects to this actually. The first one is being sexually attracted to someone, which does not necessarily mean the desire for multiple partners. Men are
Yep,
particularly visual. You might be attracted to someone. That doesn't mean it's going to make you go out and try to make that person a sexual partner. Okay.
yep,
And
yep,
is
yep.
culture the only thing that ever kept them in check, men in check? Not really, because if yes and
Uh,
no, yes and no, yes and no,
right.
because culture kind of keep you in check. But if you're married and you want to have an affair, you're going to go out and find a way to do it anyway. But so
Well, yeah, if
culture
you're
is kind
unhappy
of a
inside the marriage,
break.
right?
Go ahead.
I mean, it's much more likely for men or women to go outside the marriage because they're actually not satisfied and not happy within the marriage. Shit, if you can work things out and both of you, dig each other sufficiently, like, okay, you're probably not gonna give a shit, to go outside
That's right.
or break up. So yeah,
On cultural controls, let's talk about this for a few minutes. Were traditional marriage and religious frameworks designed primarily to stabilize families or to restrain biology?
I don't know about primarily.
Okay.
It's
Well,
definitely part of the puzzle, but if it's the primary, I'm not sure.
I think personally, I think it's pretty simple. It's for both because I think marriage and religious frameworks had actually kind of both of them in mind. Knowing human nature well enough. Okay, it's to stabilize families and to also restrain biology. There's this urge to procreate with multiple partners. I think it's for both actually. I don't think it's so complicated of a question actually. But that's me. Are we now in an era where biology runs rampant, unchecked by cultural restraints? And if so, what are the consequences?
No, we certainly not haven't reached like, an extreme end of the spectrum here.
You think it's going to get
Shit,
worse?
arranged marriages are still, very much a thing in India and other parts of the world.
So you think it's going to get worse?
What do you mean?
The dating scene,
What is
the,
gonna
the
get?
children born out of wedlock, you know,
You mean we haven't
people,
peaked
oh,
like that?
people, marriage, the continued decline of marriage with children born out of wedlock, the dating scene, the party faces getting worse, and all of that stuff.
I, I think actually that the divorce rate has stabilized.
No, not really.
It's been like 56 for a while, 56%. Um,
Okay, stop. 56% for who? because they're different groups. Because if you're talking
Yeah,
about
yeah, yeah.
56
So
56% for let's say traditional heterosexual marriages, I would kind of agree with that. I think that's pretty much the number. But other groups, it's like off the charts.
yeah, so I don't know how that breaks down. I just know
Okay,
the total big number,
I can tell you
or
the
have
number.
heard.
50, it's like 56% heterosexual marriages. Gay men marriages, it might be closer to 70%, and the highest group, highest divorce rate for any group is lesbian marriages, which is like 83, 82.
Yeah, I heard that recently too. I think it might have been one of the that I read for this, you know, during prep.
Right. So that's pretty bad, and I can only see that getting worse right now. Can any modern system replace the role tradition once played in managing male and female mating strategies?
What's the current that's managing those, or what was it at least until recently? Like, look, so the biology is the primary, right? I mean, you that's just the feelings males and females have. That runs that primarily runs the reproductive cycles.
Uh, okay. Uh, let's say once upon a time, not too long ago, the traditional role of mating strategies was, let's say, managed by traditional marriages. Is there something in modern society, any kind of a system that can replace that?
Probably like what that actually is going to look like. I think that's still yet to be decided.
I don't think it's possible personally.
No,
I
you
don't
don't think that?
think a modern no. If you look at the divorce rates by itself, they're trying to come up with modern systems, modern marriages, untraditional, let's say in a certain sense, marriages, to try to replace the traditional one and the mating strategies, and it's falling apart. It doesn't hold water.
I mean, look, once you allow, freedoms in a country, right, and you don't push down specific rules on the population, like, let people decide for themselves, they're going to do all kinds of shit.
Well,
And
they are deciding to do all kinds of stuff, and it's
and
not
and
working.
or, I mean, look, it's a big experiment, right? Hopefully, 10, 20, 30 years down the road, it'd be like, oh, we now have the data because we looked at what people did over the last 50 years, and
Okay, so they're gonna come up with something new. They're gonna pull it out of their magic hat.
I don't know about new, but like you get to compare, traditional marriage versus all these other new allowed ways of having relationships, especially, when it comes to satisfaction of being in a relationship. And then there is obviously the child rearing aspect and family aspect, basically kicking out kids that are well adjusted, if you will, right? Not fucked up, emotionally and mentally, like as a society, right? Those are the things that you would care
Hopefully,
about.
yes. Right.
Yeah, like, if we're going to continue as a society that's reasonable to operate within, to be happy within, have some sort of satisfaction within, what do you propose that people do, and hopefully have them, right? And if you're a reasonable politician, you're going to propose reasons that are backed by science and be like,
Yeah, you can
we should
forget about that, pal.
incentivize these behaviors, and we should disincentivize, these following behaviors because, hey, over the last 100 years, we've seen the following statistics, like, so, that would
You
be
can
my
forget about
hope.
that, pal. That's not gonna work. Let's
Hey,
stop and let's
one can dream.
step back and look at a broader reflection for a moment. If men and women are running two very different reproductive operating systems, is
Which they
conflict
are.
inevitable without a shared cultural framework? Absolutely.
Yeah, I'd say so. I
Do
mean,
you think
culture.
we need? Go ahead.
No, what culture tries to, I think, make the rearing of children easier. right? The family and culture revolves to a degree at least around making sure that the kids, survive and are become, productive and, happy members of society, right? You're essentially raising the next generation. Culture helps with that.
Right. Do we need to rethink freedom itself when it comes to relationships? Or simply rethink how we structure commitment?
Yeah, it's the latter for me. I think that's more valuable. Again, like
You think we
as
need
as
to
a
rethink how we
society,
structure commitment?
yeah, like as a society, have some good options on the table for what are we trying to shoot for as as a group? Is it? It certainly seems like trying to have relationships that just last forever, right? Through the initial meeting and honeymoon phase, through then having kids, through then raising kids, through then having the kids go away, through then, you know, like post kids, and then, being grandfathers, grandmothers, and eventually being totally useless and dying. Like, those are many phases, and you might want to optimize for different things in those phases. Um, so at the very least, I would hope that making it okay to have different arrangements during all these phases, should be beneficial. Like it shouldn't be demonized that, hey, if after 20 years with being together with a woman and raising children, when you decide that, hey, maybe you know what, we have grown apart so much, we need to rethink whether we still want to be together or whether we want to, I don't know, do something different now. That should be fine. That
Um,
seems kind of normal. Like it's sort of the reality. Why would you,
okay.
paint
I
those
think
paint
I
those
understand where
pictures?
I understand where you're coming from, but if you get off on that path where you say, uh, people are gonna grow apart no matter what you do, so it's normal to get a divorce after 20 years. The children are grown, they're out of the house, and that's it. Well, that's
Look,
what
some
happens when you
couples will
lead
find
like
a way to
yes.
f- to have a happy relationship, after in the next phase, whatever that is. But some won't, right? Some were able to mesh during the first, second phase, and then found that they can't mesh in the third, fourth. What do you do? Like, do you force them to stay together?
Well, that's what happens when when you lead parallel lives, you grow separately and not grow together.
Okay,
That's
but that
when
would be the reason
commitment.
for why that
I think that's what.
happens.
Yeah, but I think that's when like is failing because you're not making the debt. How to say you make not making the choice every day to renew the relationship together. I think it's inevitable what you're saying is going to happen, but it doesn't have to be that way.
Uh, Maybe, you know. I mean, we have not yet touched on the effects of how the work is structured in today's society. If people, we generally work, a minimum 40 hours a week for both men and women, whether they have kids or not, whether you're a mother, whether you're a new mother, whether you whatever, you're still expected to be a dual income family these days.
That's
Like,
right.
okay, what if, we cut that back the 5-day week to like a 3-day week and still be able to survive and pay, and live relatively comfortably, right? Like now you have all this extra time to spend with family and with your kids, and all of a sudden all this pressure is lifted for like, how am I gonna, make ends meet? And when you're tired of, like, exhausted from raising kids, now you also have a little bit of time to actually relax and maybe spend time with your partner. Like, how does all that,
Okay.
play into the
Okay.
whole picture?
Well, that's all well and good, but having, working a 40-hour a week, each partner working a 40-hour week does not stop you from growing together, because it depends also on the quality of time that you spend together when you're actually together. You know,
Sure.
working 40-hour a week doesn't exclude you from getting together and sharing and caring and worrying about doing everything else.
All I'm saying is that having more free time would probably
Help. Yeah, of
be a
course it would.
positive thing when it comes to relationship happiness.
Right. It would help, but it,
S-
it it doesn't necessarily mean you have to grow apart just because you work 40-hour week. Okay, so we're going on to the next section here. Okay, up until now, we've looked at the ideological origins of feminism and the evolutionary drives shaping male and female behavior. Now it's time to confront the radicalized version of feminism that dominates mainstream discourse today. The version that doesn't just demand equality, but actively seeks to dismantle traditional structures that have held society together for millennia. Radical feminism has moved beyond empowerment and has become a cultural force that reshapes institutions, marriage, and the family. And when hypergamy is layered on top, the results are predictable, measurable, and destructive. Let's talk about first wave to radical wave feminism. First wave was basically suffrage and basic rights. The second wave was workplace equality and reproductive freedom. Third, fourth waves, identity politics, power dynamics, deconstruction of traditional family. And radical feminism now often frames traditional male female roles as oppressive, undermining stability, which could lead to declining marriage rates, increasing single parent households, and fewer children. Men facing higher economic and emotional risks in relationships. And of course, there's the legal frameworks talking about divorce, custody, alimony, increasingly in favor of women, amplifying hypergamy's effects. Of course, we can mention cultural reinforcements, such as media portraying men as inept, disposable, or irrelevant, pop culture glorifying female independence, casual dating, and rejection of long term commitment. We could also mention abortion, reproductive freedom, and career prioritization as socially sanctioned forms of detachment from traditional family roles. Okay, and let me throw in a couple of quotes in all of this to try to summarize, try to tie everything together. Camille Paglia said, or wrote, I believe it was, feminism has mistakenly denigrated marriage, motherhood, and homemaking. Christina Hoff Sommers, The War Against Boys, highlights the societal cost of radical feminism on male development and family stability. And Rollo Tomasi said, modern society punishes male nature while rewarding female choice. Hypergamy is the amplifier. So let's go down to the talking points. Number one, how has radical feminism transformed society beyond its original intentions?
So, I mean, Tom is just a regular old guy that doesn't know much about, or you know what I mean. I imagine the people listening to this are gonna question, like, ask themselves, like, all right, who is this guy Tom that you're asking this question to? Like, what the fuck is he supposed to know about this topic, right? And so the answer to that, just so it's kind of clear and right and non-presumptuous. Yeah, I'm just a regular dude, just thinking about world in a common sense manner, right?
Right.
Just a
Well,
dad of two that are like 18 and 20 and just figuring out shit, a step at a time, like most people. So yeah, there you go. That's the base.
so you're a
Um,
regular guy. I'm a regular guy. Both been around the block a few times. We've seen things, we lived things, and if you want, I'll
Yeah, so
start.
neither of us is
I
a
think
scientist, right?
well, you don't have to be a
In this
scientist to
area.
determine certain things. Experience matters much.
Yep, yep, yep. Um, but yeah, just two friends essentially, chatting about of trying to figure out, life,
Okay.
as we see it, right? Is that fair?
Yes.
All right. Yes. So to your question, how has radical feminism transformed society beyond its original intentions? Um,
What was the?
do you
In other
mean,
words, let's start from the beginning. What was the original point of feminism? What do you think, or what do they say it was?
well, be have the rights of women be equal to those of men, right? So equality at work, equality at home, the freedoms to vote, to make to be uh monetarily what economically independent from the man, so that right, it's when you with it within the family unit, the guy doesn't get to make most of the decisions despite of what the wife thinks, because hey, the justification for that might be that, hey, well, you don't make the money, I support this family, so I should have the right to make most of the decisions, you know that's like, seems, you could argue that that's a form of slavery, or maybe the lighter, like a, it's at least it's got a shade of that. It's not necessarily obviously not the full blown, right? Because that's definitely not okay to compare the two. It's just, but there is, oppression in there, yeah, for sure. Like, well, there is at least much potential for oppression.
Okay.
Um, so yeah, just treat women like, I don't know, like equal partners in the family unit,
Okay.
right? And obviously, there are some things that men and women can't share in doing, like meeting a mother, the only women can give birth, right?
Only
And
only men can sire
and
children.
and, and only there is that, and men generally can do the more physical labor tasks, but only women can do the more fine motor skills things. And as far, and then there is the brain development and maturing at different rates. Like, boys generally fall behind girls in maturation. So girls the same age as can generally think through things better than the boy at the same age. The boys eventually catch up, but um yeah, as far as like total brain power, I mean, shit, you could argue that women can make better decisions, or maybe less emotional decisions, perhaps.
Yes.
At least in certain cases than men, right? Men be aggro and uh competitive, and maybe make decisions more through anger, and uh where I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to quote specific examples, but there is definitely situations where women can be more calm and perform better under pressure than when it comes to logical thinking than guys can. Yeah, especially when the guys get caught up in the competition, and yeah,
Okay. So that's a
that
rundown from your own personal experiences, but uh, you kind of shied away a little bit from the question. Okay. So feminism started off as just trying to get women up to par with men, having the respect they deserve in matter, I don't know, business and in the home and in society in general. Correct?
yeah, in family, at work, yep, yep, in society, right,
Okay.
for voting.
So how did that change so much over the last 40 years where there are women that say basically men are no good; they should be wiped from the face of the earth, or at least made into slaves,
Well, it's
so
an
that
extreme
so
view,
they
right?
yeah,
Like,
all right, it's an extreme view. That's what we're talking about here. The radical feminism,
so
the side that goes to the extreme so far that just what they're saying is just completely absurd, and basically the only people who listens to them are themselves.
yeah, I mean, look, like any extreme view, y- it sounds absurd. Like, unless if you really, I mean, my view is the following, probably because coming from, somewhat of a, I don't know, a science background, or at least a college science background, not that I'm a scientist or anything, um, but I firmly believe uh, that solving any one problem in any one system starts with understanding that problem, you know, in its entirety, right, in its full glory, um, so that you know all the variables that you're dealing with, right? So that's the first step to anything. So having an extreme view to me signals very strongly that you actually don't understand the full, uh, full what, the full extent of the problem,
Okay, so
the
let me
full,
let me get this straight. Hold a second. Let me get this straight. So you're saying the people with extremist views really don't
right,
on it,
are not
don't
objective.
really don't. They're not objective. They don't really understand what the issue is or the
Yeah,
problem is.
I imagine that, being extreme, at least for a while, stems from the fact that, oh, you got hurt in some situation, and you basically knee-jerking and reacting to the fact that you were hurt. And you're like, yeah, you hurt me, then fuck you. I'm gonna stand over here at the very extreme and basically fight against for a while until I get tired of being angry at you, at which point I'm okay to being more objective and look at the, a bigger picture, right? Uh, that's
Right.
that's what it's, yeah, that's what extremism seems to me,
Okay.
uh,
So
you
very
know.
good. So it seems like we're making progress today. Um, I like that answer. That's very good. Okay. And how is all of this, when this falls on top of men who are doing what men have been doing for hundreds of thousands of years, I guess, trying to find a woman, start a family, make a living, before we were farmers and all that good stuff. Now it's businessmen. So how does that in today's world translate? When this all of this falls on men, how does that shape them economically, socially, and emotionally?
Well, if well, if as a man, if you were, I would strongly advise against believing or reacting towards the extreme feminist uh, message, because again, it doesn't take an objective view of the full, of the full issue.
I don't understand.
The extreme feminists say you are, like that's, I mean, that's bullshit. I would just throw that out the window. Like
Okay,
it's not a
good.
good start to any discussion.
That's a good start. Okay, let's look at the economic side for a second. A lot of this is coming down to an exaggerated rate of divorce. People get divorced. There's children in there. You got to support the children, and men are getting hammered by the courts, by let's say social economic situation that they don't want and they didn't create, but they're suffering now. A lot of them are. A lot of people end up in the middle of the street. So, what do you think about that? What could you say about that?
Why? So if we're gonna let's try being more specific. We're talking about U.S. Court system, or the U.S. divorce, whatever. yeah,
No, it's
legal
happening.
system, right?
No, it's happening more and more. Also here in Italy, it's actually um, the rate of all of these incidents are actually increasing. Divorce is going up actually in Italy.
Look, I can only speak to the what's happening in the US, and even with that, and I'm not like well read on the subject, but just what I hear in the news and in my regular life here. Um, yeah, when it comes to divorces and child custody and man's role as a father and an ex-husband, yeah, it seems to be pretty screwed up for men. The courts seem to treat men purely as a financial source and not necessarily as a father to the children, right?
That's
It's
right.
like the value of fatherhood in a broken marriage doesn't seem to carry a lot of weight in the court. Like by
That's
default, the
right.
mother is the primary caretaker, right? In some extreme situations, the mother is, like a drug addict or obviously just a bad parent in general. And in those cases, the father gets to have the kids. But I think in most cases, um, an ex-husband and a divorced father to some kids that are primarily staying with the mom is being treated as a parent that has no value as a parent necessarily, but it's most of the value from him comes because he provides, monetarily, right? It's
That's
like
right.
make sure that he gives money, but like it doesn't matter whether he gets to spend time with the kids,
That's right.
despite in most cases the father wanting to spend time and be in his kids' lives, right?
That's
So,
right.
that's very unfortunate, and I do hope that that changes drastically if for the better, soon.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I'm thinking the same thing. And on top of all of this, there's an emotional side to this too, because men actually have emotions. We might not show them the way women are. We don't cry at the drop of a hat, and maybe we're not so expressive. But there's this dimension of the emotions too, and
Absolutely, absolutely.
you know,
Not showing emotions, I think, is largely a cultural thing. You sort of thought at a young age, that when you're a boy, you're supposed to act tough, and acting
that's
tough
right.
means not is not, whining about shit, right? That's
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 right.
one piece of it. Um, but yeah, but men still do have and feel emotions, and with a close and trusting partner, this shit's gonna come out, but you need to have a really close and a trusting partner who's not gonna ridicule you for, hey, not being like you were told to be when you were little.
Right.
So,
It also depends on the partner we're talking about, because uh, let's face it, men who cry is a big turn off to women. So when
uh,
it's
yeah,
not
you
something you
know.
really want to do, because they say they want men to be emotional and to be open and to cry and stuff like that. But as soon as a man does that, he loses all kinds of respect
uh,
from the
the,
wife or the partner.
maybe, maybe. I'm a little torn on that one because I probably still do, or definitely used to think that way, like 100%. But I think that that's mostly true, like maybe early in a relationship. Like if you're just dating and you somehow get, too emotionally vulnerable, I think the woman might uh, kind of discount you as a wimp, and therefore you lose the potential partner. But I think if you, like, a year or two into a relationship, right, and you now have, I don't know, built up a lot of trust and have, hope for a shared future, if a woman sees you going through some difficult shit in life, and you start essentially showing, breaking down in spots, right? Because there was so much shit on your shoulders or whatever, for so if you're, yeah, if the lady that you're with doesn't kind of get that, then that shows one of couple of different things. One would be like lack of emotional maturity, number one, and two is like, does she really care for you deeply if she's fucking willing to like make fun of you basically falling on your face, when you're trying your hardest, right? I mean, so
Right.
yeah.
I mean, if she's not pulling for you when things are going bad for you, she's kind of like trying to shoot herself in the foot. Because if you're in it for the long haul,
What?
one person's problem becomes the other person's problems.
Look,
So, but
yeah,
it
if you're
depends on
gonna
the
be a
persons,
couple,
and it
right?
and it can backfire. That's right.
I mean, if they love you, if she loves you, and if you're supposed to be a unit, right? Then for your partner to essentially make light of you dealing with so much that it's forcing you to break down is, that's not what, like, that's bullshit. Like, what the fuck is that? I would say, that's certainly a strong signal to let you know that they don't
Yeah, you're with
care
the
for
wrong
you as
person.
much as you think they
Yeah,
do.
that's right. Okay. Tell you what, pal. Let's jump down to the next section. Okay. So now that we've analyzed a bit about ideology, biology, and it's time to look at some tangible consequences. Marriage, once the cornerstone of society, is now under unprecedented pressure. Family structures are shifting, divorce is rampant, and the stability that generations relied upon is eroding. Okay, so we've already spoken about marriage rates uh, declining, divorce rates increasing, uh, all the let's say economic and social incentives often making long-term commitment riskier for men than staying single and such. Are modern marriages sustainable given the cultural shift and biological landscape?
I mean, look, again, it's a spectrum, right? It, our modern marriage is sustainable. So how about this? Are more marriages more sustainable than, let's say, I don't know, 20 years ago, right? That's more of a gives you more of a question that you can answer with some tangible, I don't know, values. So
Okay.
basically, I think it's easier to answer like which way have we shifted as of, let's say, 10, 20, 30, 50 years ago? And, where might things be going in the future? Are we going in one direction or the other? So, our modern marriages, let's say, as compared to 30 years ago, more sustainable given the cultural and biological landscape. So, so biological landscape is probably roughly the same, right? That the human genome or whatever, or the human makeup or physiology hasn't changed in any meaningful way over the last, you know, um, 1,000 years, right? Easily, probably more,
Yeah, but
probably more.
if you look at the supercharged hypergamy, if you throw that into the
Yeah, so
biological
that's
landscape,
cultural.
not
So
really.
yeah, I'm basically splitting, right,
You think so?
the things into buckets. Yeah, the biological I think is identical as as far looking as far back as we care to, right? But the cultural I think is the big one, or
Okay.
is the only one really in this case. So yeah, culture has certainly shifted, the big one being most recently, the social media influence over people's lives and just the proliferation of information from the entire planet, right? Like we bombarded with news from across the goddamn globe, 12 times a minute. Um, especially if you choose to, have your whatever, look at your phone frequently, which a lot of people do, especially the younger generations. Our brains biologically, physiologically, are not suited for this barrage of incoming information. And then there is like, how do you know who to believe anymore? There's so many goddamn voices out there, and
That
some
was
of them
another
are,
yeah, that was another episode I did. That was the episode before this one. You could check it out if you want to, Tom.
yeah, I mean, yeah, it's an obvious issue. Like, how do you know who to believe? Who the fuck is telling you the truth anymore? And how do you know? Who should you trust? How do you know who you shouldn't trust? Uh, you got the goddamn internet, I don't know, bots that amplify certain opinions and certain sentiments based on, some leader's choice that, hey, I want to make this popular, I want to make that more popular, tell some people in the, I don't know, break the internet department, go make do it. The next thing you know, the population in general swings, right, to believing one thing or another, which could be totally and often is just propaganda and total fucking bullshit. So,
That's right.
what do you do with that?
Okay.
How do you operate in this environment?
Okay. So, if I may interject here for a second. Modern marriages, are they sustainable given the current cultural and biological landscapes? I don't think so, personally. The
Well,
numbers
to a
speak for
point.
themselves, the decline in marriage, the increase in divorce, and everything else. On top of that, I don't think they are. My opinion. Not only my opinion is one of many, as I'm sure yours is one of many too.
Well, yeah, look, but then you can also say, or one should add that not all marriages break down, and some marriages certainly make it
Yeah,
all the way,
we're going to be
till
talking about that
the
in a few.
couple,
Yes,
right? So it's
yeah,
like,
Tom.
okay,
We're talking about that in the next section. Okay,
okay,
we're going to be talking about that in about 10 minutes. Um,
okay.
okay. If you stop for a second here, I want to look at the second question, please. How do legal frameworks interact with hypergamy to create disincentives for men? Because it's
This
part of the whole thing. Because we spoke about this, right? So
disincentives for men for what?
for
What are we
everything,
disincentives?
getting married, getting involved, having kids, all of that.
Legal frameworks? Well, I mean, shit. If you
We've touched on this before, really. We can just summarize what we were saying. Because the legal frameworks, like you were saying just like maybe 10 minutes ago, the, legally it's all set up to interact in a way that maybe interact is not the correct word, but it goes in a way where men are just seen as like ATM machines to dish
Yep.
out money for women and kids, you know,
Right. It's
and
not that right.
it's an incentive for women driven by hypergamy to go out there and marry up and take advantage of the guy that they
Oh
were
yeah.
with and that made so many sacrifices. It happened to someone I know, kind of close to me. Uh, he had to pay alimony for a really long time, and his ex-wife was actually having children, married again, uh, in a relationship, and all of that, and he still had to pay for X number of years alimony.
Yeah. 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 I mean, yeah, it's a situation like that. They sort of make your make your blood curl a little bit, and
Yeah, yeah,
piss you the hell off, right? Because like, all right, is that really fair? Like, is that, you know, you allow that to be, you only sending a signal to the women, especially those that, I don't know, don't have a good moral compass for whatever reason. It's probably not their
right.
fault anyway, either, right? But whatever, they are the way they are, and like, yeah, it's not a good look. It's something that should be fixed. I don't know, eradicated maybe. Eradicate might be too strong of a word, but fixed, right? Yeah, it just I don't know. I don't know how to look at it to I can't currently bring myself to formulate any sort of an argument that would, justify it and that would find any positives in that.
Right, exactly. Okay. Next question. This is going to be the last question for this section. There's something people don't talk about. It seems like in all of this, people don't talk about very much. At least some people, anyway, are children. So, how do children in modern family structures? How well do they do? What are going to be the long-term consequences of seeing all of this play out?
Kids when they're growing up, they don't know anything other than the inside of their own family, right? However you
Right.
grow up, that is your entire world, and that is
Yes,
the normalcy of the world for you,
that's right.
right? And later on in life, if you look back and once you had a chance to look around and see how others do it, you might realize that holy shit, my family was really fucked up. Right? Or you may realize, you know what? My family was actually relatively like pretty good, and I came away, like a well-adjusted, now I'm a well-adjusted adult without, some psychological, I don't know, fears and whatever that that I need to deal with now, right? And I don't treat people in a weird way, in some
Right,
pathological way
right,
because of what my father or my mother did to me and how they treated me when I was, as a kid. And I didn't
right,
develop some reactions to people just in order so that I can make myself safe and survive my family environment, right? Not and definitely not knowing it when I was, 8, 7 years old. So
right. Basically, in a certain sense, all of these things that we see are imprinted upon the children. They see all of these fights, they see all of this garbage, they see divorces, they see all of this stuff, and they bring it forward, and they think it's like kind of like a programming. They believe it's normal. They go out and do exactly the same thing that their
yeah,
parents did, and they become the same sex parent in a certain sense. So a
yeah,
woman is going to become like her mother, and a man is going to become like his father, and treat
yeah.
the opposite sex in the same ways.
At least early on, right? At least until the point in their lives where they had a chance to look around and maybe notice certain behaviors in themselves, right? And had a chance to compare those behaviors to other behaviors that they see that they may consider, better or more positive or something, right? Like you got to
That's
catch
right.
some wisdom before you notice the bullshit in yourself and can start doing something about it. Um, All right, but to getting back to the original question, which is how do children fare in the modern family structures? I think kids basically do best in when things are stable and safe, right?
Yes.
Like if the child can always see the parent as the safety net, no matter what they do, and and no matter how they fuck up, as long as the parent is supportive and doesn't freak out on a kid for doing some stupid stuff because the kid doesn't know any better, that is the environment I think you want to
Right.
promote and have and assure for every child. Now,
Right.
does you know the fact that marriages break up more often, that in itself, the fact that you don't have both parents at the home, that's definitely going to be detrimental. You know, can you make it less detrimental by allowing the dad to have more time with with the child despite the divorce? Yeah, I think so. Um, so yeah, it's just overall answer would be yeah. It's children are worse off when the marriages, break down and parents separate. So that's portion of the modern family structure, right? I mean, there's like families with two moms and no dad, right? Families with two dads and no mom, there and no, yeah. Um, um, and I don't know. Are there other? I don't really know what the other combinations of parents can be. I mean, I guess that's
Right.
it. But
There are large extended families made up by po- um,
there's
polygamist families,
right,
right?
yeah, there's that,
There's the
yeah.
polyamorous group that is out there, and I would not want to know how a marriage or a union or something like that would function, because it just kind of escapes me. But anyway,
So yeah, even if it's like, several wives and a husband or any other combination, like even if you got more parents in the unit than just two, and the two being a male, female, when if you focus on the kids, I think again it's back to my earlier statement, which is as long as you make sure that the kid can always find safety and support in the parents, then chances are the kid's going to turn out just fine, right? So, uh, yeah, I mean, shit, you may get made fun of you in your school if you go and everybody else in your class has a mom and a dad, male, female, and then you come in, you're like, oh, I got three moms or something. You may get looked at funny and you may need to deal with the fallout because, hey, kids are fucking cruel, period. They'll tell you how it is, how
yes,
they feel. Is that going to fuck you up a little bit? I don't know, maybe.
yes,
But,
yeah, yeah,
maybe your three moms can give you good advice for how to deal with that. And, you come home and it gets explained away in a way that you understand or something. And maybe life can go on. Will you still have to take some ass kickings in school? All right, maybe, but okay, that's probably not lethal. It may make you a better man.
yeah.
I,
It
I
might
don't
make
know.
you into a serial killer, but that's besides the point.
Yeah, uh, uh, well,
uh,
look,
by the way,
I,
I'm not editing any of this out. I'm keeping all of this. This is
yeah,
gold.
whatever.
Okay. Let's stop right there for a moment, Tom, because
Uh,
I want to jump to the next section. This is a great conversation.
let's
Okay.
do it.
In light of all of this that we've said so far, okay, it's time to ask the question: is there a model of family that still works? Okay, one that preserves the family, okay, protects children, provides emotional and social stability. Well, I believe I have the answer to that question, and I believe it lies
Yeah.
in a traditional family, especially traditional Christian marriages, which have endured for centuries and continue to function even amid today's cultural turbulence.
Yeah, for sure. I
On
mean,
top of that, also we might want to mention the Amish families that are out there, which work extremely well, and we're going to get into that a little bit more in a couple of minutes. But what do you say about that, Tom?
yeah, I have to totally agree. I mean, it's a system, right? Running a society where you, people are expected, or the community is expected to follow a certain set of rules, that are fairly clearly defined. And because it's a small-ish, finite set of things, it's a human mind can kind of absorb that and do relatively. be relatively successful following that scheme, right? And that sort of puts everybody on a, on a similar tracks. So it's less friction, it produces less friction in society. It gives you societal norms. It allows you to not have to, gives you standards that are easy to follow once you learn them. Okay, then it's like it is how it is. It makes life a little easier, right? It allows you to not need to focus on a shit ton of things.
Right. Right.
Basically, a bunch of stuff is already figured out for you. You just need to follow that stuff, and that offloads your brain from trying to figure out every little thing every moment of the day. So, there's value to that, right? And obviously the
Right.
outcomes for, for kids and I don't know, how
The married
comfortable
couple and the
or good
kids, right?
life is, are pretty decent, right? Like that's um
Okay. So let me jump into this for a moment here. Okay. Traditional marriages have thrived on defined roles. Defined roles. Men as providers, protectors, women as nurturers and organizers of the household. Right. That in and of
yeah.
itself, where you divide certain duties and responsibilities, um, has worked for a long time, and it's quite good. There's no question about who has to wear the pants in the family this week because I don't know. There's something going on at the school, and Junior has a soccer game on Sunday or something, right? The questions never come up.
Well, the questions never come up. I mean, okay, maybe they come up less. All right, fine,
Oh
fine,
well, maybe
fine.
okay, maybe they do come up, but not to the extent where they do today. When some couples, uh, they're gender fluid. They're this week who's the man of the house, and next week who's going to be the man of the house.
Yeah,
You
I mean,
know,
I'm worried that the use of the man of the house, has this connotation that it needs to be, male. Like today at least, or fairly recently, I'm starting to lean towards, who's taking the lead, and the lead shouldn't necessarily be tied to the male gender. Um, it's if you're gonna like if you're gonna have a good relationship that you value, that you find happiness in, both of you find happiness in, uh, and trust the other person. You shouldn't get hung up on like who makes all the decisions, right? Like it should be okay to
right?
essentially there's enough
Actually agree
work,
with that.
right? Like there's enough, especially when you're raising children, there's enough shit to do, and you plenty busy. You're trying to perform your job and support the family, between the two of you, that and then raising, one or two or shit, even more kids, right? At the same time that like you don't have time to scratch your ass, oftentimes. Like, okay, like you operate as a team, and you're more likely to survive and actually be successful launching the kids than if you try to always, as a, being the dude, thinking that you need to be doing that, make the decisions and push your, I don't know, will on how things are done, all the time or most of the time. But it takes two to tango. So a woman needs to be, shit, this is a little bit from my own experience. It's like the woman needs to be willing to like give up some of the, control too. Like,
Yes.
so
From my own experience with control freaks, control maniacs, it doesn't go well
like,
when they try
fuck.
to control everything. They have to back off. I don't understand, people with control issues very much. I believe they
Yeah, I
get that
mean,
from, men or women. That they must have get that. They must get that from one of their parents, because
yeah,
basically how your parents are is how you're gonna turn out. In most cases,
yeah,
anyway.
Well, look, yeah, it's knee-jerk reactions, right? That come from, again, it's like from childhood, and it's something you develop because you were trying to somehow survive in your home and or school environment, right? And it's stuck with you, like you don't even know why the fuck you do it anymore because it was so long ago. But you run on a loop. It's this behavior that you just, right, appears, or that you unconsciously use in specific situations, right? And whether that's good or bad.
Yes. No, it's probably bad because it becomes down to kind of like a programming and some kind of a framework internally, that you have, right? But organizes
Yeah.
women. Okay, let's stop for a second. Men is providers and protectors. You know, I mean that's pretty clear cut. Men have to work. They have to get out there, and they have to do what they have to do. That's kind of part of being a man. That doesn't mean he can't come home and cook dinner, right? Because if the woman's working too, or she just has so much on her plate that she can't handle it, there's nothing wrong with the guy going home and cooking the meal.
What's your take on a stay-at-home dad?
Well, it depends on the circumstances. Did the guy
Yeah.
get injured and he has to stay home for a while and he can't
No.
work? What do you
The
mean?
wife happens to have landed a job that's more lucrative, and you let's assume you just had babies. Let's say, like, you had the 2-year-old mark. You had your first baby. The kid's 2 years old. Mom's like, oh, for whatever reason, I ended up, or I had a job earlier that was more lucrative than yours. It would make more sense for me to be the primary breadwinner. The
Oh,
kids need a parent at home. Hey, dad, why don't you stay home and essentially quit your job? Let me be I'm okay with not being with I spent the first 2 years basically breastfeeding the kid. All right, cool.
okay, okay.
Now let's switch.
Intrinsically, I don't have much of a problem with that, except for the fact where the roles are completely reversed. And in a situation like that, I think it's very easy for the woman to lose respect for her husband because
That,
even though she may
yeah,
not admit it, she's gonna see him in a different way.
that I'm not disagreeing with that. Yeah, if I consult the little bit of evolutionary psychology knowledge or understanding that I have, yeah, that's definitely a risk that, like, instinctively, right, the female brain might start seeing the male as
As a beta,
uh, that, and yeah, as not strong enough to physically protect and provide, right? And
which
again,
means
it's not a logical thing, right? But it is a hardwired uh,
that's right.
animal thing that
That's right.
might result in a woman not feeling attracted to you
That's right.
anymore. And
Exactly. So
and
that's
that's
where I was going with this.
so yeah, that you know,
It sets the
assuming that that's
stage for
true, it's a problem.
listen, Tom. Listen, Tom. That sets the stage for hypergamy, for marrying up, going for an alpha who
Yeah,
makes even more money than she does,
yeah,
and leaving this poor slob in the middle of the street,
yeah, yeah,
no
yeah.
job, no family, nothing to fall back on.
Yes,
It's
right.
like
But it's a
it's like
subconscious
classic.
thing. But it's a subconscious thing for a woman, right? Like, okay, we thought we so first thing you do as a couple is, like, you make this decision that the woman should be the primary breadwinner. And then, like, out of the blue, couple of years later, she's
Right,
like, she loses respect for you, right? Doesn't really know why, but she's no longer attracted to you.
right. She
You
doesn't
know?
see you as, let's say,
Right.
uh, sexually. What's the word?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Value. Like, you need survival, like, what is it? Reproductive and survival value type thing. But then, okay, and then roughly at the same time, she sees somebody who is more, let's say, meets somebody at work who appears more successful, right? At whatever, somebody higher up in the company, right? And that person, and again, for a reason she doesn't understand or doesn't like,
She doesn't acknowledge or understand
she
herself.
yeah doesn't fully understand or doesn't understand at all, doesn't even maybe see at all because it's unconscious, is attracted to this other person, and it's attracted to them because again they seem to be more successful in life, yeah, and define success however the hell you want. And then next thing you're divorcing and marrying up.
Okay, so I think we agreed on that surprisingly so much that makes me want to jump ahead a little bit because that was a great conversation. But uh, let's move on. Okay, uh, another thing. Okay, in these kinds of relationships, marriage is treated as a covenant, not a contract, to be renegotiated or terminated when inconvenient. We touched on this in the beginning when you mentioned, I think that makes things too easy. We touched on it before. This whole thing about marriages dissolving in 10 years or 8 years or whatever is predetermined by the two people getting married makes things too easy. You know, I think when you think of marriage as something sacred, okay, as indicated by the word covenant, and it's not a contract. It makes you think about it differently. Okay,
Sure.
it makes I think you make it makes you see it in a different light, which is much more serious,
Sure.
uh, especially in a biblical context.
Ugh. Do you have to bring the Bible into this?
Absolutely. Why wouldn't I? If we're talking about religious marriages, whether it be Orthodox Christian or just let's say I don't want to say modern. That makes no sense. Modern Christian, just like you know, Christian or Orthodox Christian, something like this. You're always gonna fall into the Bible somehow. The discussion absolutely requires it.
If you're some flavor of a Christian, yeah, but what do you do with the other, three or four major religions on the planet?
Yeah. What about him?
Yeah, it's a bunch of people. Just saying.
Well, yeah. That wasn't the topic of the discussion, though. Okay. Well, let's jump on to the next part. When we talk about the traditional Christian marriage, children as a priority. In traditional marriages, raising children is central. Okay. This usually happens uh, to have one parent staying at home, most likely the mother, resulting in higher stability in the children's educational and emotional development. Okay. Let
Okay.
me ask you this question. Okay, is prioritizing children over personal indulgence a radical concept today?
Um, well, if I include myself in the definition of today, then no. I mean, I don't know if there is younger parents out there that do feel this way. Oh,
Oh
I
yeah.
would imagine. I would imagine it's again an extreme view and therefore a minority. But
No, I don't think it is. I think it's happening more and more that people, I hate to say it, but they're having children, uh, a child or maybe two children, whatever the case may be, as an item to check off their to-do list. Career,
uh,
gym, XYZ, had the children, took the vacation, have the dog and the white picket fence. Everything's perfect.
I don't know. Like I've only read about similar ideas very recently, and I totally can't relate. And I certainly haven't met, young parents or younger parents that have these sorts of views. So yeah, I had no idea.
Okay. Well, it is out there. Whether these people wish to admit it to themselves or to others, well, that happens to be the case. Okay. So let me go on to the next point that we're talking about. We're talking about church, family, and social networks that enforce marriage stability and provide guidance. Basically, the community surrounding Christian churches usually provide a lot of support towards the marriage and the
Yeah,
stability of
that's
the marriage and the well-being of the children.
for the most part that should be pretty much true. Like that's kind of a fairly well known or understood phenomenon, right? That
Yes, that's right.
community of like-minded people is going to help
That's right.
when it comes to stability of marriage.
Right. We'll say like-minded in the sense that we're talking about right now, however. Not just like-minded in the sense, you have the same political party, but like-minded in the sense that people of faith.
Yeah, cultural values and immediate neighbors and immediate family have, similar views on, as to give a specific example on, whether you should or shouldn't divorce, right? Like whether you should try to stick it out in a marriage and like, there's a
That's
bunch
right.
others around that, but like again, as a specific example.
That's right. And let's talk for a moment about psychological benefits for both partners. Okay? Men gain purpose and identity through family responsibility, and women gain security and respect. Okay?
Yeah,
Um I wanna pause on this for example for a moment. I think men need in particular this purpose. A man without a purpose, you know, uh is a man who's kind of dead inside, you
yeah,
know?
agreed.
And women who have security and respect, and of course love in all of this, because you're not gonna have all of this without that. Um, is just gonna be a happy woman. She's just gonna. They say that phrase, happy wife, happy life. I believe it came from this kind of a concept, not just you know saying yes to your wife on everything. You know, uh, I don't think that it's going to bring happiness, not to you or to her, but under this context, I think it would.
I can't agree. I mean, Jesus. Like at that point, it doesn't seem like you're a unit or a team. At that point, it seems like the wife has a husband who's essentially a yes man, and therefore the wife is forced to make all the decisions that,
Right. That's what I just
and
trying.
and
I
that's
was
a
trying
lot
to
of
get across.
responsibility, right? So like a wife may
Yeah,
think
that
that
was
if,
part of my
dude,
point, dude. That was part of my point.
okay,
Trying to say happy wife, happy life. If you're saying yes to her all the time, it's not going to be part of actually a healthy
a healthy
relationship.
marriage, right? Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
So, but under this context, under the context of what we're talking about now, under the let's say the Christian marriage umbrella, men with the purpose and responsibility, and women with her security, respect, and love is going to be fulfilling that. Let's say, then she'll be happy, and then you'll have a happy life.
yeah.
Okay, maybe I lost you somewhere. Maybe I didn't explain myself well, but anyway,
Well,
that's what
you're
I
not
think.
asking a question necessarily, right? You just made a
No, that
statement.
wasn't that wasn't really a question. That was a statement. That's correct. But here's a question for you. Could adopting some of these principles improve modern relationships without fully embracing tradition?
And the principles would be which specifically?
All of these things we just talked about here, the clear roles, considering marriage as sacred, children as a priority, community, sense of community, and all of this, and the psychological benefits for the both partners.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's just the things you mentioned either make it clearer and therefore easier, like what rules are to be followed, right? There was less to think through and figure out. You just take the word of those you trust, like, close family members, parents, as principles to implement to begin with. Like maybe at some point you'll have time to think about it more deeply and decide that, hey, maybe you need to stray in some places to improve stuff. Okay, that's fine. But you have a good starting point. Um, and then, a number of these things, like children as priority, that's a huge thing when it comes to finding value in, not value, but what purpose in life as a parent or as a human being.
Yep.
Um, And then, outside of your home, like if you're being useful and valuable to your community, you'll find purpose and value in that as well. Because like not only are you raising your children to become, essentially happy, productive human beings, but you, on top of that, you supporting your community within which your kids will operate in the future, right? After you're gone. So like that's, you know, probably like the primary source of purpose for a human being, that one can find and all that.
Right.
And
Okay.
yeah, and a man with no purpose, like, what the fuck? Like,
What's the purpose of living? What's the
yeah,
point of
you
living?
might as well
Right?
just
You're
go
dead
freaking
inside. You
take,
can't. Yeah, basically.
yeah,
I hate to
right,
say
right. Why
something like
live?
that, but yeah, basically that's how it is. Unless you can try
So
to, I don't know, refocus that into something else, then does you're in a
gotta have
really
goals,
bad
man.
place, pal. Gotta have goals. You gotta have something. Even if your goal is, I don't know, finding a goal. You know what I mean? You
Yeah,
gotta do something out there, or you're gonna be dead inside.
you need a direction. Yep.
Okay, let's start working on wrapping up all of this because I got these uh, questions. Maybe we can make some heads or tails of this after these questions and answers. Okay. Given all of this, are traditional Christian marriages just relics, or do they offer practical solutions for modern society? Are they at all relevant today? What do you think?
Well, the underlying structure of marriage is obviously a useful one. But I wish, as a society, as a species, that we could repackage that and get rid of all the uh, religious influences.
Why is that?
Because, in my opinion, religion is sort of, well, a bunch of stuff within religion is kind of outdated. It's a little bit like the fucking Greek myths. Uh, there's just a ton of material in the Bible that's like, yeah, there's good rules for life in there for sure. Nobody can discount that, but it's wrapped in fucking magic bullshit, And I think a lot of people, shit, I feel like I saw, a ton of holes in the Bible stories when I was like 12, when I was essentially being told to go to church, and I hear the priest, give this story, that story, right? And you put a couple of years of these sermons together, and you're like, wait, but last week you said this week you say this, like that, those two can't possibly be true at the same time. So something must be off, right? And you find yourself saying that, like thinking that, a few times, you're like, what the fuck, man? Um,
I think
so
Tom, to respond to that, I think number one, that's harsh, and I think number two, you haven't really had a proper, let's say, education of the Bible. Just going to
the
church
Bible,
doesn't
I've
give
read the
you an.
Quran, I've read books on history of the Bible. So, chances are I actually have a little bit more than an average citizen when it comes to understanding of like what the Bible is and where it came from. But
Okay, where did the Bible come from? Or where did the
the
Quran come from? Where did any of these things
mostly the
come
Dead
from?
Sea Scrolls that then got debated upon by the popes within the first, what, like around the 8th, 10th, 12th centuries, maybe, where they sat down and decided which story should be rolled into the canon, if you will. So, like, to the version of the Bible that should be actually printed and um, distributed, right? So they
Well,
were like, and
actually,
the
they were not
order of the
distributed.
stories.
They were not. They were never distributed in the beginning. Bibles were
Well,
kept
fine,
only in the
before
churches. But that's not
Gutenberg.
that's not the answer I was looking for.
Well, okay.
If you don't believe any of these books are divinely inspired, you're never gonna break free of that, let's say, mental trap that you're in
Well,
of looking at it in such a way.
look, none of us has actual proof either way, whether God exists or doesn't. Okay, so trying to prove or disprove the existence of God is sort of a bit of a futile thing, right? It boils down to you believe one thing, I believe another thing, and that's sort of at the very bottom, that's the end of the argument. Like, yeah, because neither of us can point to proof for any of this shit. Um, so you may be right, I may be right, none of us could be right. I don't know, but we both can't probably are not right.
That is true. We
Um,
cannot both be right. That's right.
I mean, maybe there's some way to make those two things be right in some universe. I don't know what that is, but there's probably some small chance of that too. But again, that's sort of getting away from the more important points of the conversation here.
So back to the question. So you want to take the structure of traditional marriages, Christian or not, remove the religious aspects, and apply that to modern society.
Yeah, like
But it is the
repackage, rebrand.
right. I understand. Repackage, rebrand. You go to an advertising firm, but if you do not have the religious aspects, okay, the belief that marriage is sacred, the belief in God, community, and such, you're never gonna have the structure that a traditional Christian marriage has.
Well, you can have
That's
something very
that they
similar.
work. No, no, it's never gonna work because that's what you have in modern society right now. You have people trying to make commitments, not
Oh,
trying to make commitments. You have people. You have a breakdown of these marriages going on now because I think God's been removed too much from the equation. My opinion, not
well,
just my opinion, just as yours.
why must God be at the center of your life somehow in order for any one human being to say that, you know what, I do value having kids and I do value a partner that, I see having a future with, for a long time.
Because listen, I'm trying to say the structure of a traditional Christian marriage has God interwoven into the fiber. I've heard it said, right, this way. You know, if you could think of it in this analogy for a moment, okay, of threads or ropes, okay.
Mhm.
Let's say the male, the husband, represents one rope, and the female represents another one. But when you add God as the third rope, you can make a nice braid, and you can create a stronger rope. It's the aspect of the religious part, or God, if you will, which is tying everything together.
Look,
It makes
I don't mind
everything
the
much
idea
stronger.
of God, and I don't mind the idea of believing or trusting that there is a higher power and a higher purpose to life in general, right? But I think that uh, is a number of ideas within the Bible that are not that are outdated and well, I'd say we now sort of have actual proof, from like social science that the ideas are wrong. Like, the idea of slavery in the Old Testament is like a totally cool thing. It's like totally doable. Everybody's doing it, no problem. Like, doesn't
Dude,
get
that was
frowned
a
upon.
right. Listen, you
Like,
realize that was a completely different structure to the society at the time.
well, it's in the Bible. Like, how do you extract that from Christian beliefs if it's in the
What
fucking
what
Bible? Like, what are you talking
listen, but
about?
what does it say exactly in the Bible? I'm gonna have to look this up actually. But what does it
There's
say exactly about slavery?
passages in the Old
Yeah, what does it
Testament
say?
that
Go out and
essentially
get as many slaves as you can. Is that what it
that
says?
one should keep that one should keep slaves, or like that having slaves is talked about in a pretty like normal, nonchalant manner, rather than, oh my God, you have slaves, that's totally a bad thing. Like, don't do that. There isn't a one of the Ten Commandments is not like don't keep slaves, right? Like, I mean,
Listen, let me be honest for a second, okay? Those passages, I would have to go look up exactly and read them and try to understand what the context is.
sure. Yeah, I'm
I'll
sure
be
Chat
honest with you.
GPT will help you get to that bottom
Yeah, I
that
can find
quickly.
it. I can find it somehow. But that's not the point. The point of this was in his wrap up questions, where I said if you remove the religious God aspect to these marriages, and you kind of, let's say, apply the structure to modern society, it's still not going to work, because that's basically what you have right now. You have stripped God out of the whole concept of marriage and relationships, and you get what you have now. All of
Well,
these
I think
failing marriages and people not marrying, and it's everything. The totality of what you have now is because of the way marriage is held. That's what I'm saying.
you need to sort of. Uh, I mean, I think there's more to it than what you just said. I think that we don't have a new and better adjusted ideas for the roles of men and women when it comes to having
Oh
and
no,
raising children.
oh no.
Like,
I thought feminism was supposed to be the solution to all of this, and the feminist ideals is supposed to build a better society, because that's basically what their plan is. That's basically what their goal is: build a better society where men are subservient to women, uh, and you get
but
complete equality.
is that what you think one of the goals is, to have men be subservient to women,
They
not
said it
not
themselves.
somehow equal, or
No, it
and is
used to be going for equality, and they say it themselves. It's not
okay, is
something
this
I
the
invented now.
extremist feminist, or is that
I would say
the
so. I would say that's pretty extreme, yeah.
okay, well, so I mean, no, okay, well, there's going to be the extreme feminist groups that go, touting that as what they want or they think they want. That's fine as long as it's not truly the majority view. Then I'm fine. Like, all right, fuck the extremists, fine. Like, again, you're not being objective about You know what I mean? Like you in your own little corner of the world, being mad at this or the other thing, saying extreme shit. Cool. All right. So now you get people look at you, and you might like the fact that, oh, somebody's paying attention. Okay, cool. But again, you're not really solving truly or not improving the society for everyone, for the totality of the people on the planet, just by trying to, push your agenda because, again, you happen to be temporarily pissed at this or the other thing. Um, I don't know. That's my take on it.
But listen, in every group, all right, there are always divisions, and the extremist group portion of the groups always make their loudest noise, and
Yeah,
they
the
seem and they
loudest, right?
hold on a second, and they always seem to speak for the whole group,
Yes, that's a problem.
right? So if you go by that principle right there, that the loudest segment of the group, of the faction of the group, it seems to be pushing their own agenda and dragging everybody along with them, whatever the group may be,
Yeah, yeah.
right? So if you take that and you apply this now to this situation that we're talking about right now, what do we have?
Well, we have a bunch of people that you have the majority that is yet again on yet another idea in the world, is made to believe then that it's not just the extremists that are thinking these views that are being touted, but that it's the majority that believes that these views are being touted.
Right, it's not the
And
majority
if
stating that it's the
let me finish.
extremists.
So if the majority that's so if the major so if the majority that's if you think that the majority is thinking that this is the view that everybody else is thinking, that you are very likely to actually follow what you think is the majority view, when in fact is not. So it's a bit of a problem.
Yes, it's not the majority making everybody think that the extremist group views
Yeah,
are
it's
the
it's the
are the are
extremists.
the fringe. It's the fringe making everybody think that the majority thinks like them.
Right, right. And it's definitely a problem, right? It's
Yeah,
really it's an issue, and it's for many in many different for many in many different areas, if you will.
yeah. Whatever group we're talking about, it doesn't have to be what we're talking
Yep,
about right now. Right, it could be any kind of group at all.
yep.
Right. So maybe at the heart of all of this is that what we just said.
Yeah, which
Maybe.
boils, yeah, yeah,
But
yeah, yeah,
what the
yeah,
hell do
which
I know?
ties. No, but check this out. There is this correlation now. Like that ties in really nicely with who who do you trust in society? Like how do you get what are your sources of truth, and how do you know they're in fact true? Right? Who's being honest, who's not being honest? How do you know that? Right? Like,
Well, like I said before, that was my last episode that ran almost 3 hours. Uh, with this guy I know. You can check it out if you want to out there. Uh, I guess it was episode 10. If you're keeping track. Um,
okay.
Me personally, I'm not going to mainstream media for anything. That's just me.
Well, do you at all try to get news, or how do you keep up on what's up in the world
I
these
try to
days?
keep
And
up.
and
Yeah, I try to keep up with X. Sometimes maybe in a group in Telegram. There are news media outlets, news groups, let's say, on
how do you
Telegram.
decide if what they post is in fact, like real information, as opposed to being spun one way or the other?
You can tell from the way things are written, where they're trying to report or they're trying to spin. It's not so hard to gather these informations.
Wow.
Um,
Okay.
it's not
Well,
so
shit.
hard. But
You're
everything that's
better
coming
than
from the
me if you can actually do that just by.
well, I've had practice. I'm sure you've had practice too. to try to ascertain who's blowing smoke and who's not.
All right.
But
I mean,
for example, every night, like an okay, let me give you a small. Actually, I'm not going to give you that example because we're going to turn away. If I give you that example, we're going to turn this discussion completely towards in a different direction that I do not want to go to.
all right. Back to the
Okay,
scripts.
yeah, back to the script. Let me go back to the script notes. Um, anyway, I think it's time to start wrapping this up, Tom.
Okay.
Okay, okay, so so listen, let's kind of summarize this right now. Okay, we've traced the evolution of feminism, dissected hypergamy, observed the real world consequences in modern relationships, marriage, and family structures. Uh, Let me ask, what does all this mean for society, men and women, and the next generation? The hard truth is this: if current trends continue, we are witnessing a slow collapse of traditional stability and cultural, biological, and legal forces, all pulling in different, often opposing directions. Okay, so
Hmm.
I have more questions if you care to
All right. Go for it.
go for this. Uh, I have a civilizational question. Okay, are we watching the unraveling of the very fabric of civilization as we know
I mean, who the hell knows? I mean,
it? All right, fair answer.
we
I don't
we've.
particularly have an answer to that myself.
I mean, Jesus
If the
Christ, we got what,
family,
like five
for a
thousand
guy who for
years
a
of
guy who's an
history?
atheist, you say Jesus Christ a lot. You know that.
Well, yeah, yeah. For a
Anyway,
game at this point.
no, it's not. It shouldn't be. If the family is the cornerstone, what happens when the cornerstone crumbles? Everything goes down. I mean, it's kind of inherent to the question. You know, if family is the cornerstone of society, when the cornerstone crumbles, everything crumbles.
I mean, depending on how you define family, but like the basic unit of the two parents having raising a kid, that's bottom line of the species. You take that away somehow. If you set things up so that children can no longer survive past some young age, you screwed, right? Basically the entire society collapses. um the species dies out, essentially. um
Okay.
yeah, that's like,
Okay. No problem. That's fine. Uh, Listen. Another question. With shrinking incentives for marriage and fatherhood, what becomes of male purpose? Is it strictly, let's say, monetarily focused?
I mean, yeah, I don't think you're going to be able to get away or move away from what's essentially hardwired, right? Man, whether they just naturally will develop, a love for their offspring. Uh,
Yeah, but with the shrinking incentives, the legal stuff, the social stuff, being ostracized for no reason by society at this point. You know, let's say.
I mean, things are going to shift to some other, extreme. If you think of it as a pendulum, we swing one way then the other throughout the years. And as long as kids get pumped out, whether they have loving dads or not, or loving moms or not, and the kids survive to the age where they can uh, somehow fend for themselves, the species will continue.
Yeah,
The
but
life may.
okay, species is going to continue. What kind of people are we going to be producing?
Well, that's a whole different thing. like because we can.
Maladjusted, suicidal, people
Um,
always on the edge, people who don't know who they are.
Dude, go back to the troop of monkeys, man. Like,
Let's go back.
like, all
Let's
right,
go back to the troop of monkey because that worked
or
pretty well in the beginning.
change. Well,
Okay,
I mean, right? If you want to take it to one extreme, I think that might be one side of it. What's on the other side of the extreme? I don't know because that's in a future, and I hope it's a better future and
the future
future
is now
where,
because we see suicide rate going up. People not knowing
yeah,
what to do with themselves. People afraid to leave their houses. They don't get jobs. They don't socialize. There's a lot of stuff going on right now, Tom.
yeah, and it may get worse before it gets better. But again, it's like with anything else. It's a pendulum thing. It's not going to
Ah,
continue forever. Like shit's going to swing the other way at some point.
well, we'll see
Maybe there's
that
going to be a
if we're
revolution before
alive in a
that,
few
but
years.
right, right, right. Some of these cycles take longer than our human lifetime. So,
Right, exactly. Um, Let me see what else I could pull out of my hat. Okay, let me throw this at you. Okay, women basically are near totally autonomous or completely totally autonomous. Yet in studies, happiness metrics are falling. What could you say about that? Or what should we be saying about that?
well, this going away from this idea of traditional marriage, is a bit of an experiment, right? So young people that are coming up in the age of where the idea of not having a traditional marriage is acceptable are essentially all running an experiment with their own lives and their own families, not really knowing that they're running an experiment. And once they get older, they may decide that shit, the way we did it doesn't seem to be the optimal way. They may look back and say, "Oh, I wish I did in fact have a more traditional marriage rather than this whatever I happen to do." So, and I think that might contribute to solidifying and crystallizing, these overarching values for why having a lasting and traditional like marriage, hopefully minus the religion piece, is understood as a good thing in society, right? Um,
Okay,
bec- because raising kids as a couple is definitely going to be easier than being a single parent.
okay. I think you don't know what to say anymore because I think you're tired. Because I'm getting tired too. It's been an interesting conversation, but a little bit taxing. So what I'm going to do is throw my 2 cents in here. I think maybe you're going to disagree as usual, but that's fine. Women have been fighting for many years for, let's say, complete autonomy. Okay, in life. Okay, fine. They've been fighting for what they say they want. I don't know, throw a number out. Let's say the last 50 years or more. Okay? Now that
Hmm.
basically they have gotten what they wanted or what they said they wanted, they're not happy. Because maybe what they really wanted was not exactly what they needed to be happy.
I mean, that's a pretty generalized statement. I mean,
So what do you want me to do? Talk about the person I know down the street? Come on.
uh, I look, I think that really dealing with concrete examples one by one is really the way to make solid, like scientific progress. But you know, I think generalizing in a lot of situations is problematic when you're actually trying to, I don't know, improve the state of things. Excuse me.
Are you trying to be devil's advocate or you just don't disagree with
No,
me?
no, no. I just tend to think that again, one needs to understand the system in its full detail before trying to solve problems or improve that system. So,
Okay, don't. Okay, folks, time to wrap everything up for today. Okay, time to wrap everything up. Tom's going. I don't know where Tom's going anymore with this. So let's start closing up. Okay. So basically, we've laid everything down on the table: the forces, the conflicts, the consequences, traditional values, modern freedoms, hypergamy, radical ideology, and they all collide in everyday homes, uh, workplaces, and the hearts. The family is the backbone of civilization. Without understanding it, without facing reality, we risk losing more than just marriage. We risk losing the future. Don't forget to subscribe and click on the notification bells. Okay, you can contact me on X, Facebook, Threads, and in Substack. Okay, this has been food for thought. Until next time, question what you know, challenge what you believe, and see where the truth takes you. We're done.
great. Later, everyone.